not need protein. You need to make it. You need to manufacture it. And eating protein is not the most effective way of making protein. Just like eating your hair is not going to make you grow more hair.
The health of your erectile functions is directly correlated to your cardiovascular function.
100%.
Joining us today are Miguel Bertonatti, a leading biohacker and clinic director at the Medical Health Institute, known for personalized hormone therapy.
And Carlos Bertonatti, co-founder and head manager dedicated to innovative functional medicine. Stay tuned for an insightful discussion.
93% of Americans are suffering from some kind of metabolic dysfunction.
What kind of amino acids are you doing? You doing like
We're talking
essential
amino acids.
These
Not
nuts?
BCAAs. No, not BCAAs.
Did you know about the French study? 2,500 people when the sea hit over 50 years of age. They were doing a study on cancer patients. None of them got sick. None of them.
Wow.
And they were all taking methylene blue.
Let's go to another system of the body, immune system.
I would say, like, we get this a lot. Like, oh yeah, I tore my bicep like 15 years ago. I want to use VPC and thymosin beta-4.
A little too late.
It's like, dude, no.
Cognitive health, brain health. What peptides do we got?
Well, I have to caveat with one thing.
Welcome to another episode of a Healthy Point of View podcast. I'm your host, Sam Tejada. And like always, we're bringing experts in health, wellness, beauty, all of that great stuff to take care of our health. And today we have some of our locals here from Miami that are really changing the trajectory of biohacking. And that's why we're going to call this biohacking. This episode is going to be called So You Want to Be a Biohacker. And everybody has heard about biohacking, but there's a difference between regular biohacking and advanced biohacking. Today, we have the founders of Medical Health Institute here in Miami. They treat patients from all over the globe. And these are some of the top patients that are going through some of these treatments. We have Miguel and Carlos Bertonatti. Hey, I said it, huh?
I got it. He practiced that for about an hour, guys, but he finally got it.
So it's about 2 hours, but I'll take an hour. Gentlemen, pleasure to have you here in the studio.
It's such a
man.
pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
So, we were talking about, like, what can we talk about on this podcast? Because obviously you guys have so much experience when it comes to functional medicine, biohacking, and advanced biohacking, which I think people are going to get excited to hear some of the advanced stuff that you guys are doing. That's very precision. But, today's going to be about peptides, right? And how these different peptides do all this different type of signaling and the different systems in the body. But first, I want to talk about you guys and how you guys got into this whole biohacking space. So I'll let you guys somebody start.
All right. So, it's pretty simple. When I was 22, I don't even know what I was, 18 years ago. 18. So no, I was 18, but at 22, I diagnosed myself with ED, where I just knew I had an issue. It started at 18, but at 18, I started having issues. But at 22, I was like, okay, I definitely have an issue.
By the way, he looked like an athlete.
And
He was an athlete.
Yeah. And I was in great shape, and I was suffering of ED. So, one thing led to the other. I started doing every diet you can imagine. I just tried everything: chiropractic, acupuncture,
Meditation.
Yeah, all of it. And nothing seemed to work. Then I started using Cialis and Viagra, and I know when somebody has ED, they carry in that little pocket. You don't go out without that.
The blue or the yellow pill.
Yeah. You don't go out without that. And until I hit 30, that I started working at a hormone clinic. Carlos, somehow it's a blended story where he came in, then he came out. Yeah. But the point is, I got into testosterone therapy. I started reading about the literature. Everything pointed to the benefits on sex drive and erectile function, nitric oxide synthase. So finally, I got on therapy and I was back on.
What was the root cause of the erectile? That's a young age, man. Age 18, erectile dysfunction. That's like, you're supposed to be at your prime.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it all started from, our doctor used to prescribe us 60 milligrams of Adderall, which is an amphetamine. Oh. It would be equivalent to
17.
Yeah.
That should have been in prison.
Well, I started younger. I started on Ritalin, then that didn't work. And then I was put on amphetamines like Adderall. And that really, I was drinking at 17, 18, half a bottle of whiskey to go to bed. I was waking up smoking a cigarette with an Adderall and a Red Bull. That was my wake up. It was just killing myself. And I was running on my sympathetic nervous system constantly. I was in fight or flight. So that caused adrenal fatigue. I drained my adrenals. We have a genetic factor where sex hormone binding globulin is high, which basically binds to your testosterone. Although I had quote unquote healthy levels, my free T, which is the one that's actually available for your brain and tissues and reproductive system, was tied up. So I experienced ED, man. And obviously these amphetamines, they make you even worse.
I think that's a topic though that we should touch up on, man, because in today's world, man, all of these young kids, college kids, even kids in high school are taking these amphetamines, and they're taking them like they're candy. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about not just 10, 20, 30 milligrams. I've met people when I worked at the fire department. I had patients in their early 20s that were literally taking 60 milligrams a day easily.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, man. Listen, I was on 60 milligrams of Adderall at 17. And it's like giving an A-ball to a kid, right? I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, filled with anxiety, right? And this is what they said that, would keep me focused. I mean, I was bouncing off the walls. But, going to what Miguel said, I mean, it's also like, they give you a perspective of keeping what they call a non-differential diagnosis on low T, right? Because for Miguel, it was sexually related. For me, my low system has never been sexually related. It was never about libido or erections. It was all about mental fog, right? So that's why you keep a non-differential diagnosis, because it could be so many different things when it comes to low T. For him, he found the fix, right? So he got on therapy, and it was,
changed everything. I was back online. And then there was other benefits. I saw, the performance. I had always been working out. So I saw my performance improve, my energy, my focus, my drive. I mean, there was my life before it and there's my life after it, and I'm 39, turning 40 in like 3 months, and I just would never get off.
Do you feel like you're in a way better shape now than what you were in your 20s?
I'm in a better shape than I was any time in my life. The fun part of what we get to do is that the older we get, biohacking is, in its essence, is when science meets self-mastery. So we're understanding how to use all these tools, because it's not just couple hormones and some supplements. There's just so much more that we can start, unfolding, but there's a lot to it. And when you really start living the lifestyle, I find myself getting better every year. I feel better every year. Of course, I can feel the aches and pains that my body's not 19 years old anymore, because we do extreme stuff. So the recovery can be a little longer sometimes, but in stability wise, like consistency, like, am I operating 90 to 100% at my best, and consistent? Yeah. Because especially when you're running a business, if you slept 5 hours, when you're like, man, it's not a good day for me. So you can tell those ups and downs. You're never going to be 100%. But if I can tell you, what if I can give you consistency where you can be 90 to 100% consistently? Yeah. No matter if you're 40, 50, all the way to your 80s, right? We have patients almost in their 80s still rocking and rolling. So
we do. We actually broke record. We have an 89-year-old.
All right, there we go.
But you know what? Going back to what he said, like, because nobody's going to be 100% of the time. But even those times where you have 5 hours of sleep, you're going to be there, right? Like when you need to show up. But to answer also your question more concisely, I'm 45, right? And we just came back this February. We did 21 days, 9 different mountains in Colorado. Sometimes driving 12 hours a day, recovering from the climbing at 15,000 feet of elevation,
coming from sea level,
coming from sea level at 15,000 feet of elevation, and then climbing 3,000 feet with, 30 pounds of gear. I mean, just putting on the gear is exhausting.
50 pound. The bar
is just exhausting. Just putting the gear on.
Have a little oxygen tanks with you.
No, I live on nitric oxide. Nathan Bryan.
Nitric oxide product, eating those things.
Amino acids, molecular hydrates. So this is where it comes to the cocktail things that what to do, when to do them. But the cool thing is, half the time we were fasted. We're doing these really extreme things, jumping out of helicopters for 21 days at these elevations. And it was like, we knew what to do so that we can perform at a super high level and then recover the next day to do it again.
Amazing.
But
back to back.
To be more concise about the answer, because look, I'm not on Instagram. I hate, we live in that world today, but you have to do it. But it's like, I was on a ski lift. I was skiing by myself that day. He had some work that he had to do. And I remember I was like, damn, I'm 45. And every year that I come back, my stats get better. I get stronger. I get faster. My connection to the sport gets better. Because, like I said, we run a business and, we're in this world, but I think that the time that we're the most alive, or the time that we're most ourselves, is when we're in that moment of flow, right? Where nothing else matters. I'm in this moment. I mean, you're going 65 miles an hour down a mountain. So you can't be thinking about the past or the future. You got to be thinking about this.
G-force is like 2 G-force. Any mistake, you're breaking a leg, man.
Or you're surfing 15-foot waves, and 6 feet of depth on a coral reef. Like, you have to pay attention. Like, you have to be all there. And so to be able to do that at my age or our age consistently, which is what we, that's what we work with hard for, to be doing at our age and get better and be more connected to it and derive more pleasure out of it.
That's amazing.
I think that's a testament to what biohacking really, truly is.
No, I love that. Just the other day, man, I'm brushing my teeth, looking at myself in the mirror without a shirt. And I started thinking, because I'm 38, about your age.
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking to myself, early on when I was in the fire department in my early 20s, 22, 23 years old, I was on the fireman's calendar and I was shredded, right? But I'm not too far off of where I was before. Right. And I used to remember the old timers, guys that were actually around my age now, right? Mm-hmm. That are 30, the late 30s, early 40s, some going into the 50s. They would always tell me, "Oh, you look the way you look like because you're in your 20s. Just wait until you're in your 30s." Right. Yeah. And now I'm like, I'm almost pushing 40. I look good, So that just shows you it's really not being lazy, dedicating yourself to your health, making sure that you're doing the things that you need to maintain your health. And it doesn't matter what age you are. You said you guys have a patient that's like 89.
89.
And I'll tell you, I have a patient.
I'm really excited to see his realist, man.
And dude, that one was scary. I had a patient that was around that age, around 89. And with him, man, we got that guy's libido back. And he straight up told us, he says, "Dude, I got to get off the testosterone." And I said, "Well, why?" He says,
"You're my white nuts."
No, not even that. He was like, "Listen, I don't really know how to use the computer, but I'm going on the computer to look at porn."
Oh,
Lord. Or 80 something. So it was messing with them psychologically, And we didn't even think about what that can do to a person that age, but it just shows you that it can give them the mojo.
For sure. Yeah. And just one point with that, like, I don't want to sound like I'm careful here what to say, because some people are going to watch this and
just say
you were a D. No, but look, dude, I go back and I look at some of my high school buddies and they've aged.
Oh, I've seen it.
Bad. Like bad. And
I know guys that went to high school with that have already had heart attacks and died.
All white hair, and they look like they're 50, right? And they're like, and they got a gun. And hey man, you want to go on it? No, I don't do that anymore, right? It's just like so limiting, So it's kind of.
Most of them were for a very long time still partying, drinking, staying up late, messing up their circadian rhythms. It catches up to you, right? The way you age in your 20s is very different than in your 40s to 50s, and in your 70s, it changes completely. So you have to understand that aging is not chronological; it's a biological process, right? If you have a 20-year-old that stayed working out, never drank, went to sleep early, didn't live a stressful lifestyle, lived in a farm, ate naturally, fast forward to take 30 years when he's 50 versus somebody who stayed in Miami, partying, smoking, drinking, eating whatever he wants, stressed out, all the EMF that we don't consider the invisible frequencies that are still affecting our mitochondria and electron transport chain, which ultimately is how we process everything. You see them at 50, they look like they're 70, right? So when you see somebody in their age bracket that look older or younger, guess what? They are older or younger, because the chronological age is just a number we created to control society. But you are as oldest as your oldest. Sorry, you're as youngest as your oldest organ. So what does that mean? For example, I can have the liver of a 20-year-old, but if I shot a gun all my life, I might have the ear of a 70-year-old, right? Or vice versa. If I drank alcohol, my liver is of a 50-year-old. And then if I'm technically 30, my body is 50, because now that organ has to compensate for everything else, because it's an economy of balance. Everything is trying to find balance, right? If your organs would compete for each other, you would die. So it's constantly trying to compensate. So it's about how to adapt to not only as we age, but our environmental toxins. We haven't even spoken about endocrine disrupting chemicals, EMF, obesogens. We're living in a soup of chemicals. So one of the biggest things today, and this is what I like about Liquid Vita, there's ways of detoxing the body. And one of the best ways is through intravenous therapy. So we constantly have to be doing at least quarterly per year a detox program. We got to get these chemicals out of the body, because it doesn't, unless you live, as my brother says, short of another planet that doesn't have any toxins, you're being exposed, especially if you live in a city. And most people don't think about filtering their water, their shower. They don't think about their toothpaste having fluoride, which has been short.
Hold on. I mean, I got my little air.
Deodorant, the cologne, the parabens, the water bottle you're drinking out of. We're bombarded by chemicals, and it's becoming aware of these things so we can reduce the burden and let our bodies do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. And, and to the viewer, for sure, because I mean, what he just fired off sounds exhausting. And when we started to look at this, I mean, it is exhausting. Maybe, 100 years ago, we didn't have to deal with this, but I think that the balance of healing is not only giving the body what it needs, but also removing from the body the things that are there that are not supposed to be. Like our cells are not, they weren't engineered to, metabolize and digest plastic. And we're eating about a quarter cart's worth of plastic a week.
That's good.
So one of the, like a lot of people know us for, hormones and peptides and all this stuff and lifestyle. And that's cool. But one of the foundational, I always tell people when on their intake, I'm like, look, man, the faster that you understand this, but more importantly, the faster that you accept it, the more successful you become and the faster that you'll get there.
Right.
Number one, you're being exposed to endocrine disrupting chemicals every day that are destroying your endocrine balance every single day, no matter where you live. I don't care where you live. You're being exposed to it. So you need to account for it, because if you don't, then you're going to lose.
And the thing is, you can't just get rid of it.
You can't get rid of it.
We live in toxicity.
Yeah, we live in it. So you have to learn how to mitigate it, right? You have to just pay attention. You just have to pay attention.
Enhance your detox pathways.
Yeah, all that. Avoid plastics. But in the last one, because on the flip side of it, it's not just you're being exposed, is we've also lost 80% of the micronutrients in the soils all over the planet. So food is no longer enough how it used to be, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, I want to fix my problems with nutrition. You got to live on a different planet, right? So we don't get enough. So the quicker that you understand this relationship, the quicker that you can get to the quote unquote biohacking in today's world. And what is the point of biohacking? I mean, we want to live long, but we also want to perform for a long time so that you can extract the most juice out of life.
Absolutely.
If I wasn't able to do what I do, what I love, and surf and ski and, do what we do, I'd be miserable, man. If it was just about work or, it just, that's not what juice is.
Quality of life is.
The question is, how can we keep you running at any given point of your life? Of course, there's going to be changes, right? But that you can still give your grandkids a run for their money and be active and mobile, that you don't have to end up in an old's home with somebody wiping your butt because you can't walk, and death becomes something that's expensive, painful, and just it's a painful process. Long, expensive, and painful, rather than cheap, quick, and just you don't feel anything, right? What I mean by that, people start with the cholesterol drug, then the blood pressure, then the proton pump inhibitor, then an SSRI, then all of a sudden 60% of Americans are taking 2 prescription medications or more. And 60% of Americans are taking 1 prescription. 40% of Americans are taking 2 prescriptions or more. And the average American between 40 and 60 take 4 to 5 drugs. So being fat, out of shape, sexually impotent, with insomnia, anxious, and depressed is pretty much the norm in this country. So we're messed up, right? And how do you basically get somebody completely drug-free where we're relying on bioidentical substances like intravenous vitamins are bioidentical. Yeah. If we're using hormones, they're bioidentical. Not steroids. Testosterone can be categorized as steroid because it has steroid-like effects, but it's still a bioidentical hormone. And that's what our body produces, right? Food is bioidentical to what food is code for our bodies. So we just gather up the major molecules that are missing in the soils and that we lose as we age. Mm-hmm. So when we go skiing 4 hours, we're not eating food. We're taking powders and pills and just fueling the system with what it needs. So precision medicine, so I can perform at the level that we do. And we're utilizing our fat. And then we'll break our fast 3 hours after skiing, right? But we don't wake up and, I need to eat before this thing, because we understand the key elements that the body needs to perform at that level.
Yeah. Miguel, let me ask you something, man, because you were talking about lifestyle, a lot of lifestyle things before, and alcohol, right? We live here in South Florida. Mm-hmm. People are always drinking and partying. We're talking about looking at some of the people that we went to high school with and stuff, and they're out partying and drinking and smoking. How bad is alcohol for your health?
It's a toxin, first of all. Yeah, he can think it right now, but it's simple. It's a toxin.
Yeah. Well, so this is how I describe alcohol. Because look, I'm not here to tell you not to drink, right? But I am here to tell you the mechanics of drinking. Like, because here's how I like to say it. Okay.
People should know.
Well, first of all, I mean, if you're trying to get in shape, I mean, drinking alcohol, whether it's liquor or beer or wine, it's like eating a Snickers bar. I mean, it turns into sugar, period. So
Get in shape. Right?
yeah, so just from that perspective, you want to have a six pack and you're drinking, good luck with that, right? So number one. Number two, let's look at the mechanics for a second. I mean, I think that everybody in this room and everybody watching, like they probably had their first alcoholic beverage when they were in their single digits, 8, 9, 10 years old. We were watching our parents. What is this stuff? But I mean, I think everybody in this room would agree the first time that you tasted any of these three, whether it was wine, liquor, or beer, you grimaced your face.
100%.
You're like, what the, right?
Why are we drinking?
Why are they doing this?
Right.
And so it's funny because then we become adults and they say, well, it's an acquired taste. Well, how do we acquire something that tastes like crap?
Right.
Right? Well, it's very simple. Your brain starts to associate how you feel with the taste. Now, the question then becomes, well, what is this euphoric feeling that we get when we drink? Well, it's very simple. When you imbibe poison, the body has one mechanism to actually respond to that. And that is what? Release adrenaline so it can deal with this poison. So this is, your body gets filled with adrenaline. This is why what happens when we drink. We get in fights. We approach the woman that we wouldn't otherwise approach. We say things, we get disinhibited, right? So all it is a rush of adrenaline. So that's why when you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, your adrenal, your adrenal glands are shot. So it's like the question becomes, is there a better vehicle for me to get this euphoric feeling or adrenaline response that does not involve alcohol?
Is there?
Yeah.
What is it?
Tons.
Well, first of all, I would say that we start drinking because of social acceptance, right? Oh, my father does it. Oh, I want to be loved my father.
Right.
It happens a lot. Or your best friend or the cool guy in school is drinking. So you get influenced into it. So I used to drink a lot. Every weekend it was like I drank, right? That was the thing we did as we would show up to a party with an 18. Well, first it started with kegs. Then as we grew up, it was just show up with a beer or, whiskey bottle. But as I got older, I stopped drinking. Well, thanks to him, I stopped drinking completely. And tell me who you're with and I'll tell you who you are. I just literally lost the taste for it, especially because the more we got in shape, the more I became addicted to how I felt,
100%.
right? That when I did drink, when I did put the poison in my body, it took me 2 or 3 days of recovery. Like I could still feel it. Remember, me and my brother trained 6 days a week, not because I need to, it's because I love to do it. It's a rush that I get. It's my alcohol. It's there, but yeah, it's connecting to my masculinity. It's just making me feel alive. It brings the warrior out of me, right? So when I drink, I'm 3 days in recovery. So I'm like, okay, 2 hours of fun for 3 hours of recovery. I mean, 3 days of recovery. That is not a good return on investment here. Yeah. That's just dumb.
And and you know what? He has a great point with the return on investment. That's another thing that I always say. It's like, hey, listen, look, we spend a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of energy in doing what we do, right? Like, it's just a fact, right? And we love how we feel. So it's like, okay, I'm your financial advisor. You tell me, hey, I just bought a house in the beach and I'm going to rent it out. It's a great investment. I'll be like, dude, that's awesome, man. You're going to save on taxes, passive income. Great job. He's like, yeah, but you know what? On the weekends I've been going down there, I've been just debauchering, man. Just pissing on the countertops, defecating on the floor. I'm like, first of all, that's disgusting. Number two, you're doing something purposely or consciously that is reducing the return on investment that you're making. Right. So when you are coming to us to get healthy, ripped, or want to live long, or whatever you want to do, you want to lift up your grandkids. It's like, hey, man, you are look, I'm not here to tell you not to drink, but I'm just telling you, choose it wisely because you're doing something purposely that is diminishing the return on investment that you're making here with me. And so I'm here to tell you that you're taking 2 steps back, right? Yeah. So why do that? And so as my brother was saying, as you start to feel amazing, you start to now link like, I'm going to do that and it's going to set me back 2 days. Why would I do that? Right. I'll just have some soda and lime.
No, in other words, for me also was, as a kid, I grew up, again, let's just say, self-esteem, low self-esteem, right? Yeah. And as I got older, if somebody is cared for and loved and grows with a strong self-esteem, I realized at this point in my life, I don't need alcohol to have fun. Like, I have fun without it. Right. Like, I don't need anything. I don't need a change of state to make me have fun.
Right.
I hear the music, man. I'll own the dance floor. I'm a dancer. I love dancing. I can break it down, and whenever you give me a chance,
be careful. I might ask you to do it right now.
Fireworks will come out of my feet, man. It's just fireworks launch. But the point is, it's once you get to really taste what the health truly feels like, vitality, you just don't want to deviate from. For example, I'm more addicted now. Like if I were to be single, if I weren't to be married, I would think, damn, bro, it would be so hard for me to find a woman because by 10 o'clock, I'm already planning to go to bed. I'm planning to get up at 6 a.m. so I can get the first light, look right into the sun, so I get photobiomodulation because our photo, light, bio, living cells, modulation is a regulatory effect on our cells that light has in our system. It resets a suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is a master clock that regulates every gene clock, that circulates every hormone like a cockpit of a plane. It resets everything and it activates your body so you're ready to take on the day. And by the end of the day, at 10 o'clock, I'm ready to go to bed. And to me, I had insomnia for a very long time. Like I suffered really bad of insomnia. And now that I've stabilized my sleep and I feel as good as I feel, I don't want anything to intervene with that, right? Now, don't get me wrong. You'll see me once in a while. I'll have an old fashioned.
Yeah, why not?
I just enjoy the taste. I've acquired the taste with the years. I'll
Once
have
in a blue
one.
moon. Once in a blue
Once in
moon.
a blue
Regular
moon.
smoked old fashioned.
Smoke. Yeah,
Smoke.
smoke. But you know what? I'll say this to whoever's watching because I just want to piggyback over what he said because this saying changed my life. It's not my saying. I actually learned it from Tony Robbins. Nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels.
Yeah, nothing.
I agree.
When you've actually tasted it.
Yeah.
When you've actually felt it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Nothing
whole
tastes as
different
good as
feeling,
being healthy feels.
You're so energetic, so powerful. It's just your
So
mind is
clear-minded.
sharp. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I was going.
And if
to
you're
with-
running a business, man, and you're growing and you want family and you have ambitions the way that we do, I don't need anything to get in the way of that. I need my mind
and I
clear,
tell you,
sharp,
alcohol
and
will.
consistent.
It
Yeah.
will. And it's like the next day you're just not there. You know?
You're
It's just
actually
like-
depressed.
And I'll tell you,
because the adrenaline, when it stops, when it plummets, now you have to rebuild it up. And that's why you feel like crap the next day. So it's like
for someone who wants to get like that little edge of like drinking, you said there's other things that they
smoke
can
a
do.
joint.
I mean, well,
Just smoke a joint. Take a hit.
Cannabis is a way to do it. You know, like if you because we all need a little bit of an escape, right? And
Right.
you know, some people it depends, man. Like you got, you know, I think that the greatest biohack of all time is know thyself. That's the greatest biohack.
Okay.
Right? So like know thyself. Like what is it that really juices you? For some people you might get a kick from prayer or meditation or, you know, going out for a walk or a jog or whatever, or having an engaging conversation. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. For me, it's almost become like now I love before it was, and it was funny because I'm, you know, in my 40s, I would still get peer pressure. I would still go to places
Really?
and be like, "You're not drinking?" And they would look at you like you're from outer space. And why? And I didn't want to get into the conversation, right? So I would fake it. I would like have a drink with the napkin and the lime and the you know, and I would shake it like if it was a, you know, vodka on the rocks, and it was just you know, water and lime. And now it's almost like I get a juice out of telling everybody like, you know, I don't drink and this is why, and then it brings me into this conversation. Right. So you have to know and you have to find what does it for you, but just know that this acquired taste BS is just cultural programming. Right? Yeah. Nobody enjoys tequila.
No.
Like no, it's bullcrap, right? So how do you rewind, right, and unwire yourself and find things that really juice you and propel you forward?
I always
and
tell
get juice
everybody.
from that.
I always tell everybody, man, if I'm out at the pool, I'd rather have the pina colada without alcohol versus the one with alcohol. It tastes a heck of a lot better.
Yeah.
You know?
But I'll close out with this so we can move away from the toxins. Because I did party. I did take substances in my past. But
Me too. By the way,
still,
I loved it.
Like I would party and I would take pills. Like just, I would nourish my body from a very long time ago. I would say to anybody out there, if you're not willing to give up your alcohol, then I would definitely recommend you to get an IV the next day to flush your body out.
Get it out.
Right? A cocktail to get you back to basically flush out those toxins and restabilize and get homeostasis within your system, so it doesn't linger the effect in your body and continuously cause damage. And that's where I would do an IV. Like if for any reason I got drunk like that, I would definitely get an IV.
The final point, like, dude, we have what, 40,000 labs under career now, and 10 years of business. Like, you can tell the drinkers, man. Like their labs are just wacky as heck.
It's like a Christmas tree. It lights up.
It's just terrible.
A lot of red.
And then, like the mindset is, I'll deal with it later and kick it down the road. Listen,
it's going to be really expensive. Like my brother said, when you get sick, it's expensive, it's painful, it's slow, and you put your whole family under stress.
Yeah.
You know, is it really that?
Is it really worth it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So all right, man, let's go into peptide 101, right? And I think the way we're going to start this one is let's just go from head to toe, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's start off with cognitive health,
Yeah.
right? Brain health. What peptides do we got?
Well, I have to caveat with one thing. Because in our medical practice, typically we have a tier system, like a sort of patented tier system. We would put peptides in tier 3, with the exception somebody's obese and has, he's basically at the verge of dying.
Yeah.
We would start with a GOP right off the bat if it indicates that we can, or they have an injury.
Oh.
There's the exceptions, right? But for the majority of the cases, we would never use peptides right off the gate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's the same thing as, when you plan to build a home, you gather up all the resources so you can build a home. You don't be a construction worker with just shovel and sand and expect to build a house. You're not going to get a house. You're going to get something built on sand.
Yeah.
So your cells, this is where you have to understand the key components that your cells need in order to process. So per cell, we have per second over 1 billion different chemical reactions. Most people don't know that. And we have over roughly 40 trillion cells and about 100,000 trillion mitochondria. You make that math. It's very difficult. So the point is, I'll just give you one example. Magnesium. Magnesium treats mTOR, PKA, insulin, and growth hormone signaling pathways, and sirtuins. Those are basically the most important regulatory pathways of regenerating the body. Just magnesium by itself. 42% of enzymatic functions rely on magnesium. In fact, if you had at a cellular level a deficiency in magnesium and copper, your red blood cells go from 120 days down to 20 days, which is an 86% loss in life expectancy.
That's crazy.
So that's just one molecule that we're talking about, right?
Wow.
So before we get somebody into peptides, we first have to clean up the Christmas tree that we find on their blood work, their diet, the drinking, the lifestyle, clean up the environment, then get them on these key molecules like magnesium, theanine, GABA-aminobutyric acid, essential amino acids, nitric oxides, omegas, a personalized multivitamin at a GNC, or I don't want to say GNC, any vitamin shop, off the shelf, vitamin.
McDonald's vitamins.
Exactly. A personalized vitamin, and it's certified in regards to quality, purity, and efficacy,
So
right?
you're building the foundation.
Right. You first have to
100%.
build that foundation. So, because you have to understand something. Let's define a peptide. What is a peptide? So a peptide is a signaling agent telling the cell what to do. It's giving it an instruction. So naturally, we have over 7,000 peptide reactions. Insulin was the first peptide we had to regulate insulin, right? Melanotan 2, which is what I've been injecting. I'll show you a picture later. You can put it on the screen if you want. I'm white as Casper, but I've been injecting melanotan 2 for over 8 years, twice a week. Yeah. So I produce more melanin in my skin. It's called melagenesis. So it stimulates the melanocyte stimulating hormone receptors to produce more melanin. So it's a natural sunblock, right? So we have for the brain, we have for erectile function, we have for recovery, we have for everything you could possibly imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
And peptides are also, think of them as small proteins. So a protein would be considered 100 amino acids plus. A polypeptide is 50 to 99 amino acids, right? And then a peptide is anywhere from 2 to 50 amino acids. It has its exceptions that we're not going to get into scientifically, but it's basically in that realm of amino acids. So think of it as a small protein that is telling the body what to do. So if I'm sick, I drink, I'm pre-diabetic, metabolic syndrome, I'm basically a mess, and hey, give me the CJC EPA to burn fat.
Flushed it down the toilet.
It might as well don't take anything, because you're not going to get any result, and if you do, it's going to be minimal, and then that's where you hear people, oh, and I tried peptides, it didn't work.
So
And so to kind of like just for like layman's term, what he was saying, it's a signaling molecule, right? So it gives an instruction. So the way that I like to say it is like, hey, it's like a GC showing up to the construction site. He doesn't do the work. He just says, hey, guys, I need you to build me a Ritz-Carlton quality bathroom.
Right.
And the workers are like, yeah, all right, cool. Where are the materials? That's the thing, the economy's been kind of tough. Supply chain issues have been a real problem. Let's try to do it with what we have. Here's a pile of rocks, some paper, and some glue. Well, okay, boss, well, you're not going to get Ritz-Carlton quality, right? And so if your body is deficient in the molecules that he said that you're missing, this is why peptides, like if you do it ethically, has to be an advanced thing, because if you don't till the soil and plant the nutrients that the body is going to need, the cells are going to need it in order to act upon the GC instructions, then the peptides are going to do nothing.
Right. So you're basically saying if the cells are not nourished properly, right? What you're doing is you're basically going to be signaling garbage.
Well, you're going to be signaling, and the cells are going to be like, oh,
What do I
okay,
do?
so you want me to make muscle. Great idea. What do you want me to build it with?
So this is good that you guys bring this up, because a lot of people end up, and even in traditional medicine, they always disregard nutrients, right?
Yeah.
Vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty
Electrolytes,
acids,
antioxidants,
all of that stuff.
enzymes.
all of that stuff.
And they always disregard it. But when you start looking at emergency medicine and you see what they give people who are having a dysrhythmia or dehydrated, it's all these different nutrients, right? You're giving patients magnesium chloride, potassium, calcium
Electrolytes.
gluconate, all of that stuff. These are FDA approved actual medications that are just nutrients that your body needs to function. I think it was there's an actual it was 35 micronutrients that your body needs for it to function on a daily basis. Right. So this is good that you guys bring this up as building the foundation, making sure that the body is fully nourished and optimized before you start doing some of these advanced
100%.
peptides. So let's say we already got all these nutrients, we got them, we built the foundation. Now let's get into the peptides, right?
Just so people can understand, the reason why I wanted to lay that out is because peptides are incredible, but they've been given a bad name because there's a lot of money-driven players that are just, hey, you want it? Sure, come.
Well,
bring
there's a
your
lot
money.
of sources out there too, right?
And people get allured by the sexiness of the peptides, because they see these pictures, and it's like, hey, it's kind of like everybody wants to live in a $5 million mansion, but
they don't want to put the work.
People forget that $5 million mansion is only standing in good if it has good plumbing and good foundation, and that's the unsexy stuff.
Yeah. So my point is, and we're not going to get into it. We can get into maybe some other podcasts. There's also these research-based peptides that are being sold online that have no documentation for sterility and the toxicity and the safety behind them, and they can defragmentalize into particles that can damage your DNA and become cancerous and actually be hepatotoxic, meaning they're toxic for your liver. So there's a lot of peptides out there, websites that, as long as they have the disclaimer, this is for research purposes only, and it's not intended for human or animal use, they can sell them online. And people are trusting these things and injecting them into their body without having any proper documentation of it, right? And when we're talking about peptides, you need a peptide to be 98% or more purity. If it's under
For human use.
For human use. If
Not
it's,
for Petri dishes,
Yes.
for human use.
Exactly. If it's under 95%, that's where the problems start, right? And these research peptides can be 75 to 95. So if you're ever going to go get a peptide, number one, go with a clinic that's looking at your lifestyle, meaning your diet, how you're sleeping, if you're exercising, that they're giving you proper nutrients prior to the peptide. And then once you got a healthy lifestyle, that's when you bring them in, right? And if you're hormone deficient, specifically on testosterone, we need to fix to your hormone levels, specifically starting with testosterone, right? Once we got your testosterone dialed in and key components that we just spoke about, now the peptides can flourish.
Yeah.
So that's
And
that's the only
maybe you
disclaimer
don't
I wanted to
necessarily
give.
need testosterone, but like you said, like we need the system to be running properly, right?
Right.
I love when people call us, hey, I want some peptides. I'm like, you're not ready for peptides. I'm sorry. So that's how you know. Like anybody that you walk in and they haven't even seen your life, you want peptides. Oh yeah, sure, we'll give you peptides. Like it's a human candy store. Run,
Right.
run.
So you want to start with nootropics.
Yes.
Let's start off with brain health.
Yeah.
Brain health. Well, I like starting there. In fact, one of our protocols is actually starting with brain health, because if I'm going to give you a growth hormone secretagogue, which is just a peptide that's simply more growth hormone and growth hormone factors out of your hypothalamus to your pituitary and liver, we first have to clean out the HPA axis, which is a hypothalamus pituitary axis, which is basically your two master commander centers that are instructing everything in your body. So if you smoke, if you did drugs, if you partied a lot and you didn't sleep enough, you're accumulating a lot of neurotoxicity and debris that stays in the brain. And that's why people have mental fog and they just lose their memory and their learning ability and reaction time slows down because they have poo in their brain. Right. So we first have to flush it, especially since we're a hormone clinic. There's a lot of clinics still using anastrozole, which is an estrogen blocker, which is toxic for the brain. Right. We've got to completely rid of it because there's ways to completely get rid of it. So people who've taken a lot of anastrozole will have a lot of brain fog. So we need to clean that up first. And also for the 70-year-old patient that just their brains don't work as well, we need to clean up the commanding centers to then hit the physical aspect of the body, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have from Cmax, which is more for cognition. It's basically what I like to call your natural Adderall. It gives you mental focus. It helps with learning. It helps with neuroplasticity. It really...
There was a study that actually it said it produces exuberant synaptogenesis. That's a fun term, right? Exuberant synaptogenesis. So it excites your neurons and it grows them. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
So
really cool.
before a meeting, or if you're gonna write a research paper, you got a meeting, you take a nice nasal hit. Nootropics are best taken intranasally because they bypass the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah.
Rather, because you have Cmax, C-Lang, you have a couple of them that are injectable, but they're better taken intranasally because they pass a blood-brain barrier and they take immediate effect.
It goes directly into the
And
brain.
you also want to sniff them, like snort them almost. You don't want to you want to really hit the back of the nasal cavity.
Let it
So
get
it
in there.
actually
Get it in
takes,
there.
right?
Yeah.
So for type A personality, so you have something like C-Lang. So you have CMAC.
But
which
by the way,
is-
can I just mention something? So it's not necessarily like CMAX and C-Lang. It's not necessarily for if you want to study, you got a meeting and you got to be on point, or you want to learn something amazing for that stuff, but also for physical performance. Like I remember the first time that he introduced me to make C-Max and I was doing it, and when it had hit, I was on a skateboard. And I was just like practicing on a skateboard, and I literally felt connected. Like it was like me and the board were one.
Wow.
And it was this like sync that I felt. And this is like that exuberant synaptogenesis. Like I literally felt like my dendrites had grown.
Yeah.
And I like
So
learned
what's happening in your brain when that's happening?
with the CMAX.
Yeah.
So what it's doing, it's exciting the neurons, and it's making new neuron connections. Right, so it's like, I guess, do we have memorized scans like on CMAX, like we do on psychedelics, or it just kind of like shows?
No, they do have. Yeah, they do have scans on it. So if you look at a neuron, you have the axon, the dendrites, right? So some will work on creating more synapses firing, some more dendritic connections. So the dendrites, which are the branches, will grow. Some repair the axons, which is the main terminal where memory crosses through. And that leads to better dopamine, serotonin, GABA, neuropinephrine production. So these are the
Mood
feel
balance.
like good neurotransmitters that turn into hormones in the body, right? So norepinephrine is the neurotransmitter that creates awareness, arousal, and then it converts into adrenaline in the body, which is actually the hormone consequence response of it. So again, it's impossible to touch them all right now, but I'll give you like kind of like the ABC. So CMAX is when you want focus, you want attention. You're gonna do a sport, you take it right before a sport. It's almost like you're
super focused.
You're absorbing the experience and it's sticking to your brain much more than without it, right? One caveat that I'll give anytime you're using nootropics, plus minus, don't take them more than 8 weeks because it can have receptor attenuation. The more you take them, it starts to lose its effect because it's kind of like you keep pressing the button and you start building tolerance. So you want to get off of them, or you want to know how to cycle them. So you can jump back and forth between different ones if you know how to do
How often do you
this.
cycle them? Like
You can cycle forever as long as you know how they work, and
but you do it for
But you want
how
to
long?
hit if you never want to come off of them, you have to cycle them in a way where like you're doing different ones, so it
Yes.
hits the
Oh,
receptor
different
differently.
receptors. Okay.
Exactly.
But the idea is also take a little bit of time off and then just gain some of that like residual, and have your brain do it on its own as well, But so yeah, CMAX, C-Lang is a more anxiolytic, calming effect. It's very similar though, right, to CMAX?
Well, no, yes. The only difference is C-Lang is it considers an anxiolytic. So instead of taking benzodiazepines to try to relax you and that sedate you, this doesn't sedate you, but it does calm the central nervous system down because it helps with the gamma aminobutyric acid, which is the most inhibitory neurotransmitter. But in many ways, it calms you down and it gives you focus. So for somebody like me that I'm type A hyper, that calms you down, so it gives you that focus, right? Then you have things like dihexa, which is one of my favorite. It literally cleans out. So you have your nervous system that connects to your brain, which is called the glymphatic with a G, glymphatic system. So when you don't get proper sleep, your brain cells are supposed to shrink about 40 to 50% when you sleep. So the glymphatic fluid can permeate the brain and get rid of the neural toxicity or debris that we accumulate, just like our you poo, our cells poo.
Right,
So
right.
you need to get rid of that set of debris if now you have that mental fog.
Which is wild, right? It's like your brain shrinks, cerebral spinal fluid comes in, and cleans out like Windex on a window.
Exactly. Literally like that. It wax on, wax off, cleans it out the brain. So that hexa literally regenerates your brain, causes neuroplasticity. It spikes brain-derived neurotrophic factors, which is the main protein that you need for neuroplasticity that makes your brain more pliable and moldable, so you can create new neuron connections.
So
right?
it's basically like you're like from a micro perspective, which by the way, that's what I feel like psychedelics do as well, and that's a different conversation. But it's kind of like it expands your mental real estate.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Kind of like, like Hawaii expands through the volcano eruption as it gets bigger and bigger, right? So like your mental capacity is just kind of like that real estate just grows a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you have VIP, which is it regulates your circadian rhythm, especially for jet lag. You can use it. I'm not going to get into it, but there's more like that. Then there's FGL. Then there's P21, which is a synthetic form of cerebrolysine. And then my favorite is cerebrolysine, which actually comes from, it's derived from brain's pigs.
No, yeah, pig's brain. Like kind of like a thyroid medication is derived from pig's thyroid.
Right.
So they have the same.
Like armor thyroid and P thyroid.
Right.
Same thing here, but for stroke, ischemia, what's it called? Most neurological,
Dementia, Alzheimer's.
dementia, all of them.
brain trauma.
You can literally, and you can use them IV, but it's literally stem cells for the brain. It's not even a peptide. It's a chain of many different peptides tied together. That's really a protein. And it's just think about stem cells for the brain. They will reshape and remodel your brain. So we like to do that once a year, like just to nourish the brain and give it that. You never want to lose the plasticity. But then again, when you're taking these things, if you want to amplify the effect, it's like taking protein and not working out and expecting your muscles to grow.
Right.
It's the same thing, right? So if you're doing this, learning a new language, an instrument, dancing,
playing music.
any of this type of stuff that is unnatural, it's gonna actually
brushing your teeth with your left hand.
Exactly.
Or, if you're right-handed.
do something that's different, that makes you work, that makes your brain work. So these medications it's fitness for the brain. You're taking supplements for the brain, so you got to do brain exercises that will fortify your brain.
That's pretty interesting. I like that. That's there's a lot that you can do. There's even technologies out there that can exercise your brain as well too.
Yeah.
So mixing that with the medication.
And remember, like our like for example, I have my wife's grandmother is almost 90. I mean, she physically looks 90, right? But her brain,
sharp as a tack.
oh my God! Sometimes I speak to her on the phone. I'm like, this woman sounds 30 years old, And
my grandmother was like that until she died.
So it's
at
really
age
important.
97.
Like you think about like the incidence, especially in women with Alzheimer's and dementia, and it's a tragic disease. So to be able to have the technology now in this age to be able to have things that kind of feed the brain and brain cells and expand our mental real estate, I think it's invaluable.
But this is where things like nicotinamide mononucleotide, NAD, zinc, magnesium, nitric oxide, all these things are affecting the brain, right? They're key molecules, testosterone. We're not getting into the longevity aspect. We're just talking basics, right? We do a lot of different things like phosphatidylglycerine or phosphatidylcholine, which feed into these major, there's about 60 neurotransmitters, 5 regulate the rest. So if you feed like glutamate, GABA, serotonin, dopamine, and you treat those and phosphatidylcholine, if you nourish those, you're nourishing all of them, right? Yeah. So you give your body these key components. You do brain exercises. You can literally do a brain exercise by going to the gym. You do your regular dumbbells, 1 foot in the air. Work on the balance, right?
And that's why like we'll take like scheduled, because if not, like, dude, we will work each other to the ground. I mean, ambition is a thing, right? Like you got to be careful at the same time. So you have to schedule time for yourself where you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to do what I love. And so, for example, for us skiing and surfing and doing sports, I mean, that keeps our brain.
Keeps it going. Yep.
In the moment. Because, I mean, you think about you're going 65 miles an hour skiing and you're difficult terrain. I mean, you have to make split-second decisions, in the moment. Right. And
be ready to go.
Yeah. You got to be ready to go and you got to know where you're going. Like it's all this thing. And so for me, that's a humongous mental exercise.
So, all right. So we hit the brain. Let's go to another system of the body.
Let's do it.
Immune system.
Oof.
That's a
I
big
would
one.
I would say like Thymosin Alpha-1 is one of our favorite peptides. I mean, you know, when C came around, right? This was a peptide that was being used at the hospitals in New York City, and they reported that none of the staff got infected by using this peptide. Been around for 30 years.
Yeah,
Funny
I
thing
used it
enough-
around that time too.
Funny thing enough, when they started pushing people for the V, you know, it like we saw this systematic sort of like taking off the shelves with this peptide. Like first it became, you know, certain pharmacies couldn't make it, or you couldn't sell it under certain, you know, like guidelines, or sort of like you couldn't say that it was, you know, protecting you and all this stuff. But dude, we saw people that were nearly hospitalized or in the hospital and bounced back in one day.
Yeah.
You know, this is an immune modulator, right? So it's the amazing thing. It's that if you have autoimmune disease, meaning that you have a high running immune system, it downregulates your immune system, right? But if you have a compromised immune system, like, you know, when your T cells are down, right, which is part of what, you know, C attacks, it boosts up your metabolism. And I mean, there is not even like a way to even overdose on this peptide. Like you can take massive amounts of this stuff, and we've seen incredible results in terms of immunological response. Yeah, it's one of the most, if not the most studied peptide with the most amount of evidence, used in 70 countries with over 70 real solid studies and thousands of patients.
For a lot of different viral.
Yeah,
illnesses.
yeah,
A lot
yeah.
of different I mean, the outcomes are unbelievable.
So at home, I always have 1 or 2 vials in case I'm getting sick. The cocktail is immediately, because you can tell when you're really healthy, you can smell, taste, and feel when you're going down. Like, oh, I'm going to immediately. I'll mix a vial.
The aura ring will tell you too.
Yeah. But dude, when you're in tune the way we are, believe me, you can smell it. I can smell and taste when my immune system is down. And not to mention that I can feel my performance is low, because we don't just perform physically. Like we're running a operation with over 3,000 active patients, 29 people per organization. We're growing about 100 new patients. Like we're growing. Right. This thing is moving, right? Yeah. So we finish training and it's go all day. And so I can feel when I'm going down. And as soon as I'm feeling going down, I mix the vial, I inject right away. I'm not going to talk about doses here, but I do the dose that they were using in hospitals, especially emergency doctors. And I'll do a 25,000 milligram intravenous vitamin C infusion. Nice. Literally, that within less than 36 hours, I'm back to normal. Me, like, we don't ever get sick, because immediately when the cells or the immune system starts to get suppressed, you're immediately countering it, right? Zinc, quercetin, NAC. I'm taking things of that nature in higher dose. Vitamin D, of course, I'm always in that 70 to 90 range. But when I'm getting sick, I'll go up to 50,000 units a day, right? Like just to kind of meet the immune response where I'm compromised. Yeah. So the point is, and this is a key major factor that I want to take home, the thymus is the first gland that goes. At 15 years of age, it starts to plummet. By the time you're in your 60s, you have less than 90% function of that thymus gland that you have right here. Yeah. So what happens is, if the thymic gland, you're inflamed, you're diabetic, you're on 4 prescription drugs, which is the average American, and you're in your 60s, no wonder why so many people drop dead, because their immune system was already compromised. In fact, it was called lymphocytopenia, which is a reduction in, hey, your lymphocytes are exhausted. We have normal lymphocytes, and your lymphocytes are your first line of defense when you get sick. And if you got no lymphocytes, you got no T cell production, natural killer cells, then you're out of gas. You got no bullets in the chamber to fight off whatever. Yeah, it's the difference between going through a category 5 hurricane with like plywood and no hurricane impact windows versus a house that's prepared for a hurricane. Right. So that's something that we would cycle once a year to get the thymus gland reactivated to, hey, don't forget to produce these compounds, right? You want to wake up these glands that we have, especially as we age. But especially if you're going down with something, you want to respond immediately. Like if there's a fire, I want the firefighter to get there immediately. Right. You don't wait a day to start taking something. You start immediately taking something. This is what I'm talking about, becoming in tune with biohacking itself. You just know when you're at a level, you know when you're going down with something. Yeah. So this is how we never get sick. Like, I don't care what virus hits in the future. I'm not worried about it because we've survived thousands of years and we're so dialed in that I'll take my chances with what we're doing. I mean, for God's sake, when the sea hit, we were surfing the next day, right?
Wow.
So, I mean, we were never afraid of it because...
Dude, I was massively exposed over 5 times. I never got any symptomatology. I never acquired the virus, and every time I got tested, I had no antibodies for it.
Yeah. In fact, at this point, because I understand the science so well, if we had another event like that, the first thing I would do, first of all, I would start doing these protocols to amp up my immune system, and then I would go get myself exposed to it because I would build the antibodies for it. I would build up my immune system to be immune to it. You don't want to run from it, you want to run towards it. But if you're going to run towards it, you better be prepared, right?
You
better be prepared.
That foundation better be built.
I don't recommend anybody to do this unless you understand the science and how your body works. And like all my inflammatory markers are at baseline. I'm excreting out of my bone marrow enough stem cells to recruit and repair my body. Like I'm fully dialed in. I know I'm very confident. It all starts in your mind as well. My mind is very confident that I can overcome it, right? But the final point is Thymosin Alpha-1. If you have a respiratory issue, LL37, it helps to expand the lungs and the alveoli to help you breathe if you're asthmatic or whatever. And then the supplements, as I said, NAC, zinc,
and I'll make a parenthesis. I don't want to open a can of worms because I know him. A little methylene blue will go a long way.
Methylene blue, yeah.
Well, okay, all right. Because we're going there. And I know methylene blue, intravenous methylene blue. So,
but did you know about the French study? 2,500 people when the sea hit, over 50 years of age, cancer study. They were doing a study on cancer patients. When the sea hit, none of them got sick. None of them.
Wow.
And they were all taking methylene blue.
So all right, because we're talking about the immune system, right? We're talking about peptides, supplements for the immune system. Now let's go ahead and switch gears, which this is related to the immune system. Peptides, supplements for mitochondrial health.
Ooh,
because it's connected, right? It's connected to the immune system.
Well, I mean, it's one of the hallmarks of aging.
And then you brought up methylene blue, which obviously that's hits the mitochondria.
Well, I mean, it fits perfect into this one because so lately, you're familiar with, you just had him not too long ago, Ryan Smith.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
He's a genius with peptides. You know, last time we saw him at the Biohack Expo that we were speaking, we always kick it. And I'm like, yo, what's up, bro? We were talking, and he's like, dude, I'm like, if you had to pick one peptide, this is geek talk, right? We were talking, if you had to pick one peptide, which one you pick? He's like, dude, SS31.
All the way.
I'm like, all the way. I'm like, well, why? And then he started explaining. And then we got into it. And then, so basically SS31, the main benefit of that peptide is that it repairs the cardiolipin. So your cells have a cellular membrane, right, that is made out of fat. The cardiolipin is what protects the mitochondria. So think of the cardiolipin as your shirt. Right. Every time you wear your shirt, it loses elasticity, and if it has a logo, it starts to degrade. What this peptide does, it keeps the shirt brand new. So it doesn't matter how many. Remember that you have to reproduce, just like amino acids. You have to produce them. You have to intake them every day, and you have to produce mitochondria. Right. So when you're repairing the cardiolipin, you have less electron leakage. Electrons are basically the currency we need that turns into ATP. So as we get older, for every ATP unit that we produce, which is our gasoline, we produce oxidative free radicals. That's our exhaust. So the older we get, the cardiolipin becomes damaged. So we produce more exhaust, less efficiency, less energy output. Right. And therefore, skin ages, organs age, we age in general. We're as old as our mitochondria. These things have been around before we were around. So if I can repair that cardiolipin constantly and keep it brand new, my shirt never ages.
Basically keeps your Nikes fresh.
All the time, yeah. Like those shirts, you can imagine, they're always kept like that. So you keep your mitochondria, basically the integrity of a 19-year-old. Yeah. And then methylene blue, since it acts as a electron donor or supports in the electron transport chain, it literally cleans out the mitochondria, while the SS31 repairs it, so you have more energy output, less exhaust, more efficiency, almost like running hybrid. And when you add the methylene blue, you're constantly cleaning out the mitochondria, and you have really healthy mitochondria. So I would tell you, hands down for energy, SS31 is by far my favorite peptide.
And then, I mean, what you would add there, I mean, less for a protective mechanism, more for performance and more metabolic health, like MOTS-C.
Oh yeah, well, if you can,
Oh yeah,
it starts getting really expensive when you start talking about this, right? Motsi, they call it exercise in a bottle.
Yeah.
Right. That's what basically it is, because it induces your body to burn massive amount of fat, and it activates, it jacks up the mitochondria, revs up so you can produce energy like if you're working out but without working out.
Yeah, and,
so,
and your endurance will it skyrocket for at least like a good 30. So if you have like a run or something that you got to do,
that's
like you have like a high endurance run that you inject. I mean, you inject a whole bottle of this stuff and bam, for 30 to 40 minutes, your go time.
So basically, that would be the pre-workout you would take. Talk about pre-workouts; they're all garbage. Basically, this is the real pre-workout. You take this right before working out, or while you're working out, because it has such a short half-life. We'll warm up, and then I'll go to the bathroom inject, and you're freaking on
It's
fire.
like junkie stuff, you know?
Yeah, no, this is next level stuff, right?
No, I hear you. All right, so we got mitochondria, and then obviously certain supplements, probably like CoQ10 and whatnot, that help up with that.
Yeah. I mean, those are baseline, right? Like the supplements are baseline.
You have urolithin A now, which feeds the mitochondria. There's many. Again, we're not talking about supplements right now, but everything you're speaking about, peptides, they all go in combination with specific key elements like supplements that are feeding the information from that peptide.
Cool. So we talked about the immune system, right?
Mitochondria
now let's
and brain.
Let's go into, if we're talking about immune system, let's go into regenerative peptides.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of regenerative peptides do
I
we
mean,
have?
you know, we'll say that the ones that are really like famous out there, I mean, that's what they call the Wolverine stack that most people know about, right? I kind of hate it when people say it like that, but you know, you got things like BPC, thymosin beta-4, which is now, you know, TB500, right?
Which is just a synthetic form compound.
They changed the name because they needed to change the molecule because the FDA got all funny about, you know, these compounds. And then you have like things like GHK, right? So, you know, BPC from a very like layman's terminology, it's responsible for reducing massive amounts of inflammation, right? So if you have an injury and you have a lot of inflammation, BPC, not only does it act on the gut and it also like stimulates growth hormone channels, but it reduces massive inflammation, right? So that you can get that down and speeds up the healing process and the repair mechanism. And then combined with TB4, maybe he'll explain it different. Combined with TB4, which is another part of the thymus, right? So it stimulates another part of the thymus gland.
It still has some of the effects like thymosin alpha-1, just not as strong.
Right.
As
so
the
basically,
immune
like
part.
if I have a cut, right? Like my cells need to prioritize the cut. Like me, like, okay, I need to send more workers there to the cut because this is compromised, right? I need to glue it back together. So what remember instructions, right? So TB4 says, hey, we need to recruit more agents faster, better to that area, right? So so that's why the BPC and TB4 combination works so well when you have a fresh injury, right? Because BPC will attack the inflammation, you know, speed up the healing process, but the TB4 will send the recruit cells to the area to start the work in progress. Right? So that combination.
So I like to say BPC is the ice pack from the inside out.
Yeah.
Any injury, you want the inflammatory process at first, but then you want to reduce the inflammatory response so you can start recovering. It also is very well documented too.
Let's say that properly. So like if you're going to have a surgery, we always tell you get the surgery and then start the BPC 3 days later, 48 to 72 hours later, because you want the inflammation initially. That's the body's natural response to an injury. It needs to, you know, create inflammation to protect you. So you want that inflammatory response. Kind of like when you work out, you want the inflammation. Right. You don't want to take BPC and go work out, right? You, like it's just, you know, or you don't want to go ice bucket and then go work out because you want
ice
the
cold plunge.
Yeah, you want the ice bucket. You want the inflammatory response. So you wait for the inflammation for 2 days and then boom, you attack inflammation. Right. So I'm sorry to cut you off.
That's fine. That's a good point though. So BPC is documented to activate growth hormone receptors within the ligaments and tendons. So especially if you had a ligament or tendon damage. Oh, and it also enhances your muscle satellite cells, which is what attracts stem cells to actually recruit and repair that area. Right. So you reduce the inflammatory response, you enhance these growth hormone receptors so they're more, the affinity to growth hormone and stem cells is much greater. So repair, especially if it's a ligament, tendon, or muscle tear, it's much faster. Mm-hmm. The thymosin beta-4 causes cellular migration, so more cells migrate to that area to repair. That's why there's anecdotal evidence. It would take millions of dollars, if not billions, to get evidence of this, but we know because of we're part of a forum, a real doctor forum, where we see
People in the trenches, doctors.
thousands, I have hundreds of thousands of patients of anecdotal evidence that it shows that if you inject at the injury site, you have more receptors that are closer, so the medication binds, the affinity is much greater and binds to those receptors within that injured site much faster, right? So you can take oral BPC. It's one of the only ones you can take orally because it's made by the gastric juices. You can take it orally and inject it around the injured site. Then the GHK copper peptide is an antifibrotic agent. So when you injure yourself, antifibrotic means that they'll basically go back to its natural state. If not, you have what a scar is, which is fibrotic. It's a fiber that didn't properly bind together the way it's supposed to. So it helps for collagen synthesis, hyaluronic acid, all the matrix that make the components of skin, but it helps so those agents, those fibers can realign themselves healthy. And then in addition to that, if you wanted to, you can add something like IGF-1 or a growth hormone secretagogue, which we can get in later, because remember with the BPC, how it enhances those growth receptors. So now you jack up your IGF-1, your growth hormone, that growth hormone is going to go and repair that area much better. Yeah. And the last thing is that the thymosin beta-4, the first gene to get activated when we're injured is thymosin beta-4. It's actually a gene. So when you inject this stuff, you're activating more of that gene pathway to go and regulate that injury.
Yeah. And a couple of caveats for people watching, because, you know, we get this a lot. Like, oh, yeah, you know, I tore my bicep like 15 years ago. I want to use BPC and thymosin beta-4.
A little too late.
It's like, dude, you know, no. You know, like sometimes surgery is what you need, right? Yeah. So sometimes, but I want to be very careful because, you know, these things are being like promoted out there like the Wolverine pack, you know, and like heal like a Wolverine. And yeah, sure, like all this stuff works. But again, if you have the baseline first, you know, you're doing all the proper things.
You layer them.
Right? You layer it. And also it depends on the timing, right? Like if you have an injury that's very old, thymosin beta-4 is probably not going to do anything. Right? Now, could you get a lot of mobility back by, you know, reducing inflammation with BPC? Yeah, but, you know, I just want to be careful that people understand that there's some injuries that are way past the extent of what BPC and TB4 and these Wolverine stacks can actually do, right? So you got to be very careful, and that's why we're very ethical and like, look, you know, let me know what the injury is, right? Like if you have a fresh one, but you need surgery, I almost don't want you to use the BPC and stuff because then your body's going to start healing fast, but wrong. Right. So sometimes, you know, there is a time and place for traditional medicine. Right. So, but look, and again, look, everyone is super different. And this is the cool thing that, you know, my brother and I doing this together, we're almost genetically identical. Okay. Where we've done massive genetic tests and, you know, people are like, dude, you're like a step away from being, you know, twins. But obviously we look different. We have different personalities, all of that stuff. There's minor differences. Right. And so he'll take BPC, I'll take BPC, and we'll respond totally different, right? Under the same dose, right? So that's one thing to consider. And then also, like, you just have to be aware, like, again, on the timing and the layering of what you're doing, right? And making sure that the injury is something that is going to be effective in this treatment, because if not, you're just being lied to.
Right. Yeah. Right. No. So regenerative peptides. And a lot of issues that people have with regenerative, when they need the regenerative therapies, a lot of the times it comes from being obese, right? Yeah. So that takes us to the peptides to lose weight. What do we got?
The GLPs.
Let me just, can I just kind of caveat this? And by the way, sorry, let me just, because I have back issues, right? We have herniated backs. I've taken gallons of BPC. Does it help my herniated back? No. But you know what? We had the guy that we ski with, he was a patient, now he's a friend. He came to us in a walker. He came to Miguel in a walker. Miguel put him on a protocol, recovery, and BPC has been life transformative to him, where he was told he would never walk, and now he's jumping out of helicopters with us. Same thing with older guys with arthritic conditions. I mean, when they run out of BPC, they get emotional, right? So it varies from person to person, so I just wanted to caveat that. Now, in terms of the weight loss, let me just say this. Look, there's a ton of doctors out there, very famous doctors, okay, who are demonizing this medication, you know, and the basis of it is you do this medication, 60% of the weight loss is going to be muscle loss and muscle mass, which is true, right? Another caveat there. Now,
if you're using this as a magic bullet, as a silver bullet, and you're using this as a standalone medication, please beware, this will have catastrophic effects, right? Now, if you know how to use these properly, because we've put people, look, we don't condone bodybuilding, but there's guys that have wanted to do it, and we've helped them, and we have used these GLPs to make people win fitness contests. So this whole concept that you're going to lose muscle is just because you don't know how to use them.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I'll call him out. Peter Attias is talking some bull
crap.
BS. I'll challenge him any day. Like, look at me. I've been on tirzepatide. I've been on GLPs for over 2 years. Do I look like I'm losing any muscles? And I'm consistent at where I'm at.
And by the way, we'll be on tirzepatide jumping out of helicopters.
Yeah.
So
but you know, I think
completely baloney.
The part that you hit on that's very important is you have to do it right.
You have to do it
right.
Yes.
Take the right supplements. You have to eat the
100%.
right amount of food.
Right.
You should get a body composition analysis to get a baseline of how much lean mass you have.
100%, dude. 100%. But also, like, the other piece of it is, let me just say this: these are the, and I'll steal a quote from our Dr. Rudy. These are the most like transformative medication of our time. They're revolutionary medications. Why? Because, like, for example, when we discovered penicillin, what was killing us? Infections, right? Today, what's killing us? 93% of Americans are suffering from some kind of metabolic dysfunction, right? So these are medications that will help people that are suffering from these food addictions, right? And these problems get it straight. Now, the other thing that people need to really understand is how this medication actually works, like the mechanism of action. I always tell people this is not magic fairy dust that you're going to sprinkle on yourself and all of a sudden you're going to have a transfiguration. Like, you need to understand how this works, because if you don't, then you're going to switch one addiction for another addiction, right? And then you're just going to be addicted to this medication. So I'm not going to switch the addictions. I'm going to teach you how this works, and I'm going to use this medication as a momentum tool to repair and get rid of the underlying problem that caused you to get on this medication in the first place.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, that's a portion that I wanted to say, but I mean, they're amazing, GLP. So now we've had, remember, these medications came out on the market, like the first sort of iterations of it started coming out in 2015, 2010, and then 2015 is when, semaglutide came out, right? Let's use GLP, right? So the first iteration was GLP, which GLP just kind of, basically in a layman's term, shuts down your appetite, slows down your gastric emptying, so you're less hungry. So you're intaking less calories. Right. But this is also problematic. This is why you see all these effects of why people are demonizing, because, you're taking somebody who's already nutrient deficient. You're already telling someone that, has all kinds of metabolic problems, is nutrient deficient, is
and now they're
toxic,
not eating at all.
And now they're not eating at all.
Right.
I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Right? You're going to be totally depleted. So if you're going to go on a GLP medication, you have to make sure, just like any peptide, you have to layer the foundation.
So, all right, we're going to reverse, right? We're going back to the beginning. This is good. This is where the foundation goes into play. Right?
Minerals.
Because if you're going online and buying these GLP-1s and only taking the GLP-1s, and now you're not even eating at all, now you don't even have any of those nutrients that your body needs to even function.
Correct. And one big one, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Okay, one big one that I'll just say off the bat, like, because here's the other concept, right? Then you have the biohackers, which I think, buffoonery. Like, they'll say, you need to make sure that when you're on these GLPs, you need to be eating 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. I weigh 185 pounds, man. 185 grams of protein is already super hard to get in. But how are you going to get that in when your appetite is completely shot and eating 20 grams of protein makes you nauseous?
Right.
How are you going to do that? Right? Well, then you go to what actually makes protein, which is amino acids. So, big disclaimer out there. If you're on these GLP medications and you're not using amino acids, that's the first sign that you don't know what you're doing. And your doctor doesn't know what he's doing. Right? So amino acids are super, super important when you're on these GLPs, because it gives your body the building blocks to make the protein. Like, for example, you ever seen people that fast long, they lose their hair? Why? Because your body doesn't have collagen proteins to make hair, right? So amino acids is what you give.
What
to
kind
your
of
body.
amino acids are you doing? You doing like
We're talking
Essential
essential
amino acids.
BCAAs.
Not
Nah,
BCAAs.
no,
No,
that's
BCAAs. That's a,
What about like the
That's a
GAC
different
lift?
discussion,
You
huh?
guys do the GAC lift? too?
Yeah, but that we use that. I use that. I call it T plus. I use it with my
that's an
testosterone.
injectable that's more for performance. I'm talking about so that's why they're called essential amino acids. Without them, you will die.
Right.
And these are not things that your body can make. You have to give them from the outside in.
Right.
And so if you're able to give it the 8 essential ones in the proper content, form, quality, and format, your body is able to make all of these proteins that you need. And the great thing about them is you're taking them. This is how we're able to do these things fasted. I take my amino acids, and guess what? My body has all the proteins that it needs for that specific time period so that I don't deplete myself, right?
And we're talking about you need protein for everything, right? We ask people, what do you think you need protein? The first thing that comes to mind is what?
Muscle.
Muscle. So
like
you
1%.
need it for your digestive enzymes are protein based, right? Myosin and actin in your muscles are protein based. Elastin and collagen, which make the elasticity of the skin, are protein based. The
Keratin for your eyes.
the keratin and melanopsin cells, which is what regulates your circadian rhythm, are protein based. BDNF, synapses in your brain, which improve memory, learning,
Growth
and
hormone.
cognition, is protein based. Hemoglobin A1C. Hemoglobin in general, which is what gives oxygen to the red blood cell, is protein based. Your antibodies, protein based. The list goes on. And then you have growth hormone, insulin, melatonin, thyroid, insulin, all protein based. So we need essential amino acids to build and regenerate every physiological and biological system of our systems in order to make hormones, tissues, everything, right?
So, and you know the typical thing that we get into that I think I think this right here is the biggest miseducation and the biggest miss in the entire health and fitness industry is protein, right? Oh, you need to eat a lot of protein. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you need to eat a lot of your hair when you go to the barbershop to grow your hair? Do you need to eat your nails to grow nails? You don't, right? So what do you think? What makes you think that eating a chicken leg is going to make you muscle? It just doesn't work that way. You know, like this is
There's a whole science behind it.
All protein is genetically foreign to the body until it's broken down into individual components, which are amino acids, separates into the non-essential, essential, and they'll make muscle. And the BCAAs, we use a concept called irreducible complexity. If I give you a gun without a trigger key, you shoot your target. Or a boat without a propeller key, you go fishing. Or a piano without keys, you play me a song. If all the components of that puzzle are not put together simultaneously, that system will not work. So branch chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and valine, without the other 5 that are essential, it will not work. Histamine is the ninth quote unquote essential amino acid. It's debatable, whatever. We use it as well. But we follow Dr. David Minkoff, 43-time Ironman competitor, 8-time world champ qualifier, 77 years of age, still kicking ass. Yeah. And he wrote the book, The Search for the Perfect Protein. We follow the 8 essential amino acids, but we still put the 9th one just in case. And the point is that you need these essential amino acids, especially with GLP-1 to not break down muscle. I would actually, in addition to that, add that these are incredible band-aids that we're using, but they're not treating the root cause. The root cause is poor education on what food is. Yeah. Food is code.
Big time.
And we have socialized food into an entertaining experience and pleasure base rather than a fundamental necessity for our health and indispensable to our well-being, because food is genetic information. It's code for our bodies. So when you can look at food from that perspective, your whole philosophy around living a healthy, vibrant life would shift. Right. That's number 1. Number 2 is having a routine of exercise. If we were meant to move, we were either picking up things, getting hot, getting cold. We either had to chase it, make it, or go build it. Mm-hmm. Meaning we were always moving. People 95% of the time are sitting in front of a computer indoors without light, eating hyper-palatable foods that are astronomically high in calories, nutrient depleted, and designed to cause orgasms, activating the same reward centers just as much as cocaine did, right? That's not to mention the rest of the lifestyle, Netflix or social media. We're not moving. So we become a society that's overfed, hypermedicated, overstimulated, yet malnourished and dopamine depleted, and a spiritually bankrupt society. Let's start there, right? So once you got that in place and you got these nutrients that we're talking about, you can use these GOP long-term the way we do in microdoses. And when we mean microdose, we mean smaller amounts and longer periods. So instead of, for example, the half-life is 7 days, instead of injecting every 7 days, you're injecting every 10 to 14 days. Yeah. You're not injecting as often. You're reminding yourself that you have to do some of the work. But the biggest thing I would say that we found is that GLP-1s are GLP peptide hormone mimetics that are stimulating the body to produce GLP, which is a hormone that you release out of your intestine, the ileum, the third part of your intestine, to basically shut down hunger or make you feel satiated with small amounts of food. It's what regulates hunger, right? And these are microbes that feed that hormone to be produced. So when we take the peptide, we're actually masking a symptom. So we need to take something called Akkermansia municiphala. I can't say the other part of it, just Akkermansia, which is a form of bacteria that feeds the GLP-1. So therefore, you don't need as much GLP. Yeah. And you naturally help your body produce GLP because it's already inside of you. Remember, every peptide we're using, already inside of you. It's already inside of us. So what's missing that we're not feeding our body to naturally produce it? So we do believe in them. I do use them. It turns off the food noise. They're fantastic.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. So like, if I can interject, so remember, GLP, just like Cialis was never an ED medication. It was a pulmonary medication, right? Then they started noticing that the guys didn't want to return.
Well, it started with Viagra, right?
Yeah, they didn't want to return the medication, right? So actually, interesting case when the C happened, they woke up an elderly woman. They gave her a massive dose of Cialis and it brought her back.
Viagra. It was Viagra.
Was it Viagra?
Yeah, it was Viagra. It was Viagra.
Well, okay, so my point is, these medications, when they
Sildenafil. Let's not use the brand name. Sildenafil.
They started making them for neurological effects, but it was a lot sexier to sell it for weight loss, right? So the thing that we love the most about the medication is not necessarily the weight loss, which is just a natural outcome, right? It's what happens in the brain.
Right.
It's the sort of dopamine uncoupling to food associations that we have in this country and people. And the biggest thing that I get from patients is, wow, I've learned that I don't need nearly as much food as I thought I once did. Yeah. That's the key thing. And then we go back to what Miguel was saying, where we go back to this sort of ancestral living, which, remember, breakfast, lunch, and dinner would have been an offense. It would have been a preposterous idea to suggest to our ancestors who needed to walk for miles, who needed to hunt stuff. They didn't, they weren't eating breakfast, planning for dinner. Right? They were thinking we might not eat for a couple of days, right? So, that's the cool thing about these GLPs that are sort of if it's used by the right practitioner and educated in the right way, we can bring people back to this homeostasis where they can now regulate and not have this, because like you said, it turns off the food noise. You're no longer considering food. But one last thing that I want to kind of wrap up on.
And it gets rid of addictions. People who have alcohol,
marijuana,
all that stuff. They drastically release your.
The studies actually look wonderful.
And dude,
for longevity effects, to reduce inflammation at the organ sites,
brain
for
health,
your brain. I mean, it's a phenomenal peptide.
Dude, I have cardiologists calling me please put my patients on GLPs, right? But one thing, where's my camera? One thing that I wanted to say about this protein stuff, you do not need protein. You need to make it. You need to manufacture it. Hundreds of thousands of proteins per day, every single day. And eating protein is not the most effective way of making protein. Just like eating your hair is not going to make you grow more hair. I just wanted to kind of say that.
So we got the weight loss down.
And then we just close out with the weight loss. Right. Now, hopefully, because we have an IRB, we're officially a research-based medical practice. And under research purposes, under the FDA guidance, we get to use peptides that are not available to the public, like retatrutide. Or
retatrutide.
Retatrutide. Yeah. I like to say retatrutide.
It went GLP.
That's the one that works on 3 receptors.
Yeah, it's a triple
the first
agonist.
It was GLP, then it became GLP-GIP, and now it's GLP-GIP glucagon.
And that rutratutide has incredible effects because it binds to the GIP receptor 8 times. The affinity is 8 times stronger. So it has 8 times the potent effect on lipolysis, which is the uncoupling of triglycerides, freeing them into your bloodstream for you to mobilize them and burn them. Yeah. And then the glucagon, when it goes up, it tells the body we're low on fuel, burn fat.
So it's basically the greatest fat burner ever created by man.
It's incredible. Wow. It's incredible.
It's incredible.
So that's the next thing that is, I believe, stage 2 or 3 phases of studies. But when that comes out, it's going to blow the roof out of the house.
Yeah. It's incredible.
People got to be ready for that.
And it's cool, right? Because a lot of people that have been on these GLPs and GIPs, they sort of plateau. And then, the cool thing, it's like kind of like you work on the evolution of the patient, right? Like you want to move them in steps. So there's people like they'll use the GLP and they'll beat the food addiction. They'll beat the noise in their head, and now they could do it without it. Like now it's like, yeah, I don't have a hunger problem, but I still have this little bit of fat that has been hard for me to do. So now you step it up to retatrutide, which is 50% less powerful on the GLP portion, which is the hunger suppression. But like Miguel said, 8 times more powerful on basically the fat burning effect.
Wow.
So that's how you start graduating on these things, right?
Amazing. So, all right, so we lost the weight. Now
we lost the weight.
We're ready to perform, right?
That's a good way where you lined it up.
So what I want to talk about, and there's obviously a lot of different peptides out there, but I want to hear the top 2 peptides for performance.
You mean like muscle, like physical performance?
Yeah. If I'm an athlete.
I would say like pound for pound without like if you. It depends. Like if cost,
I know which one I like.
If cost is not if money is not a factor, then the greatest one that is out there. I mean, it would say tesamorelin.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's the one I.
Yeah, the tesamorelin. But I'll tell you, but pound for pound in terms of building muscle density, IGF-1LR3 has shown to we were trained by Dr. Mark Gordon. Shout out to him. He's like the growth hormone guru. And he likes it for muscle growth. He likes it even better than growth hormone because it's very specific for muscle.
I know a lot
density.
of doctors that like tesamorelin better than growth hormone.
Yeah. So, but look, it depends. I mean, for example, it depends on the somatotype, right? If you're an ectomorph, really skinny, and you have a really difficult time hacking on muscle, doing IGF-1 or 3 with something like MK677, which is not technically a peptide, but let's just put it in that category. You'll build muscle, right? Big, if you're looking to get some muscle and burn fat, you can take like tesamorelin, but with ipamorelin, because here's what we need to distinguish. We have growth hormone releasing hormones, which are at the hypothalamus pituitary commanding centers. And then we have growth hormone releasing peptides, which work slightly at the pituitary, but more at the liver level, right? So tesamorelin is a GHRH. So think of growth hormone releasing hormones as the agents that fill the tank with gasoline, and the GHRPs are the ones that burn the gas out of the tank or burn the gas out of the engine, right? So when you combine synergistically a GHRH with a GHRP, the synergistic effect is much better than just watching a piano by itself rather than a piano with a guitarist, right? Is you're going to have a much better symphony. Yeah. So it's about what symphony are you trying to play here? So and it's also about learning the half-life of each of these drugs, right? So I'll talk the most available that people were using.
Just so you like people understand. So one produce like tesamorelin with GHRH, basically in layman's term, it produces growth hormone out of the brain.
It secretes it.
Right. So you secrete it out of the brain, and then the regular pathways, it goes to the liver, and the liver has to push it out. But if your liver is not effective, right, it might not push it out at the time that you need it. So doing the combination, one produces it out of the brain, it comes here, and the other one makes sure that it gets out into the bloodstream.
Oh, and to caveat it, for example, if your insulin on your blood work is above 6, I'm not giving you the growth hormone, because the homology, which is the structure of the molecule of IGF-1 versus insulin, 50% of it is identical. So they're competing for the same receptor. Insulin is store fat, grow, right? I mean, store fat and just catabolic. And then IGF-1, insulin like growth factor 1, is growth and anabolic and fat burning, right? So if your insulin is, I don't know, per se 10 or above,
over 6,
it's like trying to swim upstream. Like you're taking a peptide that's trying to trump the insulin response, which is only making it harder for you to actually build the muscle and burn the fat.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that your insulin is in check. That's the only caveat. So anyways,
for sure.
the point is you take tesamorelin, which it's the most powerful GHRH with the most powerful GHRP, which would be ipamorelin, right?
And if I can make a connection here, like we're talking about a brain function. This is why when we started with brain function, he said, I actually like to start with the brain function to clear, because if you have someone who's done a lot of drugs and a lot of abuse up here, you can stimulate growth out of here, but it's like
it's not gonna
sputtering, right? Where it's like
the
if
spooing.
you clear. If you clear the brain, like the poo out of the brain, then you know the
signaling effect is sharper,
better.
and you're getting exactly the clear signal what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
So, and this again, as you said, you build it up. Now we're talking performance. If we're talking performance, we're talking about you have everything else in check, right?
Yeah.
So now you have a really solid foundation. So these things, we pulse about 3 to 6 times per day growth hormone. Our pituitary, just like our bodies, when we don't work them out, these glands become sluggish. So they don't pulsate as strong. It's meaning you don't get as strong of a pulse of growth hormone and you don't get as enough of it, right? And the most amount of growth hormone is released between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning. So yes, taking a nightly dose is great for restoration of the body in general, to reset it and restore androgens, everything. But taking in the morning is really good for fat burning and building muscle as well. The other thing that I would say is understanding the half-life of the medication. So for example, CJC's half-life is 30 minutes. Ipamorelin is about 2 hours. Every medication has 5 half-lives. So 50%, 75, 87, 93, and 96%. What that
start
means,
losing that much.
That means if I take 100 micrograms and if its half-life is 30 minutes, in another 30 minutes, it went from 100 micrograms to 50 micrograms. Then the next half-life is 75. Then it's 87. Then it's 93 until 96 is basically flushed out of your body.
Right.
So when you understand these half-lives, you can pulse these things many times a day.
2-3 times a day.
I've never found a better analogy. Maybe a better analogy will come to your head, but I always thought about when you flush the toilet. What happens when you flush the toilet? You have to wait about a minute for it to fill up. Well, today it's 20 seconds. But you have to wait for it to fill back up before you can flush it again. Same thing you're doing with GHRH and GHRP. You're flushing out of the glands these growth factors into your body so they can take their biological effect, right? Yeah. So if you understand the half-life, you can do them 2 to 3 times a day. I'll give you an example. 3 to 5 IUs of growth hormone, which is a high dose of growth hormone. Technically speaking, you would have to do ipamorelin 3 to 4 times a day at anywhere from 150 to 200 micrograms, or semorelin, which is a GHRH as well, 100 mics 3 to 4 times a day, and CJC as well. Right? So if you know how to pulse them, you flush it out, you let the body reproduce it, you flush it out again, then you're getting these constant pulses and waves of growth hormone into your blood. And if you're working out, you're repairing a lot faster and you're building muscle and burning fat much better.
Yeah. And I would say if you're going to do it like that, like this is, I mean,
this is next level.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine injecting 5 times a day? You know, it's kind of obsessive, right? So this is like, hey, I have a competition, or I'm training for an Ironman,
or I'm going to go jump off at a helicopter.
I
need to perform.
I need to recover and perform. Yeah. That's applicable. Now, regular life, you would do it once a day. And I would say from a longevity perspective, because people want to, like, in terms of like the night stuff or the day stuff is good to burn fat and obviously perform when you need it. But as we age, so there's an amplitude. He talked about, like, when we produce growth hormone, the body naturally produces its biggest spike of growth hormone between 8 o'clock at night and 3 o'clock in the morning, right? But as we age, that amplitude, the size of the spike begins to diminish over time. Mm-hmm. So as we age, is always a good idea. You want to work with the body, give the body what it needs when it needs it. Right. So because you want to, because most people are like, oh, why would I need to do it at night? I already produce it at night. I'm gonna do it in the morning. Yeah, great. But at night is when you get all those factors like recovery, right? Sleep, all these things. When
the anti-aging restorative
all
effects.
The anti-aging effects. So you want to, as you age, the amplitude goes down. So that's why as you age, you do it at night to get that amplitude back.
Because it's what's going to restore the body.
Yeah. So that's spike.
And if you take it in the morning, we take it, like, again, since some of these have very short half-life, tesamorelin is about 10 to 12 hours, so I'm not worried about that one. Yeah. But even with that one, you start your first set or 2 sets, you have a little ice pack medical bag, and then you go to the bathroom and You inject, and you get that rush going through you, and you're freaking lifting.
You're doing next level stuff.
And and we're doing it on a fastest state with essential amino acids. Sometimes, depending if I'm under 12 hours, I'll do it without the essential amino acids, because you got to think, when we hunted, do you think we were hunting when we had a full stomach?
No.
Or we were hunting when we were really hungry? And guess why you get that mental sharpness when you don't eat?
Tough.
That brain-derived neurotrophic factor comes from our ancestral living of hunting. Think of a lion when it's hunting. It's quiet. It's so laser-sharp focus. It's the same thing you're working on in the gym. And you get the most amount of BDNF spike. And the only way to reproduce your mitochondria has been proven today is through exercise. So if you're in a fasted state, you take this growth hormone thing, you take AOD, you take MOTC, SS31, and you take all these supplements and you go and pump weights, you're going to have all types of stimulus happen in your body. You're waking up all these systems, which is what we want. We're not just waking up the body. I'm trying to wake up my neural circuit system, my biochemical system, my nervous system. I'm trying to wake up the body.
You literally get a rush.
Yeah.
So talking about waking up the body, right? We talked about performance, weight loss. We're here. I mean, I look like a sculpture. Right? Now we want to wake up the rest of the body. Sexual health. How are we waking us up?
Well, that one is fun.
Yeah, I mean, look, like, of course we start with layers, right? Like, and when we're talking about sexual health, let's just talk about, like what Miguel went through, which at a young age he had ED, which, by the way, this is kind of like the birth of the company, where it's like, dude, if you had ED at 18, can you imagine how many other people are suffering in silence with this stuff and they're not talking about
40 million Americans.
All right, this is crazy stuff. So I think that the basis for erections is nitric oxide, right? Like, that's just the basis of it. That's what turns on the switch. A lot of people will reach out for the Cialis and I'm sorry, the sildenafil or the tadalafil. But these are just they're downstream effects of what nitric oxide really accomplishes, right? So we Nathan Bryan, I'll steal this from him. Big shout out to him. He explains it this way. He says, look, nitric oxide turns on the switch. Cialis and things like tadalafil or sildenafil, what they do is they just dim the light brighter for longer, right? But if you don't have nitric oxide, that dimmer won't work.
You won't get any vasodilation unless you have nitric oxide.
So you want the nitric
You need
oxide.
nitric oxide to have that dilation.
Yeah.
So PD5 inhibitors like Cialis, Vardenafil, sildenafil, they all can help that vasodilation. But without nitric oxide, you have no
The nitric oxide
vasodilation.
is extremely important.
And I would start a layer deeper that we started by Dr. Elliot Justin, who we interviewed. He has a device called the FirmTech, which is a device that you put in your penis. It's EMF free. That was one of my questions. Is my penis being electrified here? So when you put it on, it turns off. It's just
like an
recording.
Oura ring for your penis.
Yeah, it's an Oura ring for your penis, and it actually shows because the health of your erectile functions is directly correlated to your cardiovascular function.
100%.
So if you don't have good, and also linked to your to your deep sleep. So you can actually, when you're getting full-on erections when you're sleeping, you're in full deep sleep. That means your body's completely paralyzed. So there's a direct correlation between erectile function and erections throughout the night and deep sleep. So we like to get a baseline. Like, this is, again, going to the root cause, right? And say, I'm having ED. Okay, here's some Cialis. Oh, that doesn't work. Here's some PT44. Okay, it doesn't work. Inject your dick with Trimix. Oh, it doesn't work. Get a pump. Yeah. Let's start with the basics. Let's actually put a ring on it and check out what is a response. So the score goes 1 to 10. It gives you the duration, the intensity, how many minutes you should have, and it gives you an overall score.
That's pretty interesting.
Yes.
I'm going to check that out.
I got one for you.
Does it measure endothelial?
It's
also?
washed. It's
I'll bring you one. It's actually really cool. And I haven't used it. It's brand new.
I hope. I want the seal on that damn box.
It's sealed.
The small one ain't going to work.
What he said. What he said. Well, listen. If you can't fit this thing, dude, I want to see it. Because this thing expands. I need to see it. But no. So what he was saying is cool because in our practice, you get a lot of guys that will come with ED. But remember, ED and sexual function and libido and all this stuff, a lot of it is psychological.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I promise every guy in this room, you have one missed opportunity, where friend downstairs doesn't show up to the party, that can send you on a psychological
Yeah.
whirlwind that is so hard to beat, right?
Yeah,
and I've
course.
had to deal
Well,
with
no,
this.
listen, I speak from hands-on experience. That happened to me. Once I fixed the physical, it was still the psychological
Yeah.
effect.
Is it going to work?
And-
Oh my God.
Am I
Don't-
gonna?
don't let me down.
I'm not in the moment, right?
You know?
I'm before I'm even getting to bed. I'm thinking, is my dick gonna get hard? Is my penis gonna work?
So yeah, this is like a really useful thing, right? Because like I said, like if it's psychological, it's really hard to break, right? So, like people will start, they'll get a hormonal balance, they'll start using the tadalafil, they'll do great, and then they'll go through the honeymoon stage, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, it's not working as well, and I need more, and it's like they want, tadalafil like Skittles, right? And it's like, no, hold on a second, man. This is not a candy store. Let's figure it out for real. So we use this ring, and look, if the ring shows, which measures 3 to 5 time nighttime erections at a specific duration, a specific firmness score, and you get that consistently every night or for 3-4 times a week, you don't have a mechanical issue. You have a psychological issue, which is also a breath of fresh air for the person that says, oh, it's not mechanical. So I can trust it. It's my mind. So now you have a pathway to heal that, right, without more medication, right? But just like as an overview or general like advice, if you have a sexual dysfunction issue, or a libido issue, because libido is also in the mind, right? But being hormonally balanced, it's really important when it comes to sexual health. Like you could use all the supplements and peptides and all the things in the world, but if you're hormonally imbalanced
Or
impaired and you have sexual dysfunction, that's probably the first place to look. Like again, Miguel, this is the direct experience. He tried to uncover every stone. I mean, he practiced everything under the sun, and it wasn't until he fixed his hormones that his sexual function came back. So that's what I would say. But there is a great peptide.
So I mean, there's many. There's oxytocin that really is a love cuddle hormone. Yeah. I've actually taken really high doses intranasally right before sex. It has a very short half-life. Phenomenal.
Does it work?
Yeah, it does. But you have to do it like right before. We'll hook you up eventually. You try. You just have your wife sniff it. You sniff it, and woo! You're on, baby.
I've had the oxygen. They'll actually compound it with the PT-141 too.
Yeah. But I'm talking like 500 to 800 IUs. They usually do like 60 to 120. I'm taking really high doses. Yeah. Like you feel like you're falling in love right again.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I need that.
It's really good. So that PT-141, which is bromolatide, I can't even say the name always, but just PT-141, which was actually FDA approved for women, female dysfunction, because it works within the central nervous system. So PD-5 inhibitors, nitric oxide, all work within the vascular system for vasodilation. This works through the central nervous system to create so much arousal that women have their penis is their clitoris. So they get an erection to their clitoris, and we get an erection. But it makes you hypersensitive in the sense of it makes you really horny.
Yeah.
Really horny.
It stimulates libido in a great amount. Yeah.
So that combined with a little bit of nitric oxide, if you're above 40, you should be on it, period. End of story, you've lost more than 40-50% of your production, depending on your lifestyle.
Interesting thing about nitric oxide, so they used it on special forces, and they took, what was it, 40,000 feet?
Yeah, something like that.
Some ridiculous height from sea level. They took them on a helicopter 40,000 feet, and when you go that fast, right, you get like, you get kind of like drunk.
And not 40, I think it was like 25
you get
or
like,
something.
what's it called? Is it height fatigue? I forget what it's called. So they were testing them to like take them up really high and drop them and gauge their performance. Because when you go through these elevations, like it takes you time to acclimate, right? So you get acclimation fatigue is what it's called. So nitric oxide, this is what we use it in the mountain like 3-4 times a day, because they took them from from sea level to high elevation using the nitric oxide, and then performance did not falter.
Wow. Yeah. So anyways, PT-141, oxytocin, and definitely I would add, if you're having ED issues as a man, shockwave therapy. You can literally buy, it's called the Phoenix. It looks, if Elon Musk can make a device for your penis, it would have been this one. And it's a home device that has the same intensity and therapeutic effect as any, like the Storz medical machine. And you apply it at home, and what it's doing, the acoustical sound waves is causing the plaque to break down. So if you're 40 years old, think about not having an oil change to your Ferrari in 40,000 miles. You break up that microplaque, it induces endothelial growth factors, fibroblast growth factors, platelet-derived growth factors, all these growth factors to regenerate the penis, create angiogenesis, which is formation of new blood vessels. So now all those pipes and cylinders are properly working, so blood can engorge the tissues much easier. And you add something like PT-141, low dose Cialis with nitric oxide, we'll fix you if you have an issue, is the point.
And it's funny because it increases sensitivity, but for me, like when I did it, it actually, I never had premature ejaculation, but this really made me last long. So you know, you can always make sure that she's satisfied first.
Well, one of the things with these type of technologies like the Phoenix that you talk about, the low frequency shockwave therapy, is that it's not only for erectile dysfunction, it can be for performance.
Yes,
For sure.
yes.
So-
But then again,
100%.
the goal, and this is speaking from experience because that's how the whole brainchild operation of this developed, is if you have to pre-plan sex, it takes the whole magic out of it. The goal is to be able to spontaneously respond, so you're ready to go. That's what makes it interesting. That's what gives you the confidence, the masculinity of what makes you identified as you, right? When you're pre-planning it, I'm not going to get into it, but basically 2 previous relationships passed to my wife, beautiful, wonderful women, basically lost them because first impression easy, right? But when you're in a relationship, I had to time it. They're ready to go, oh, no, baby, but it's really, no, I can't because I got to take the pill. And it just gets annoying after a while. And then you start kind of sabotaging the relationship because you don't want to talk about it. So if you're having an ED issue, this is something you really want to speak to your partner about. If she's your girlfriend and she dumps you, then that wasn't your girl. And if it was your wife and she supports you and loves you, she's going to understand. But once you're able to vocalize it, you take that monkey off your back and it just gives you a lot more confidence that, wow, I have support now, right? When you hide it, it's like compressed energy inside of you. But when you're actually comfortable enough and confident to, hey, I have this issue, I know that I can fix it. I can tell you with the utmost confidence that it is completely fixable.
Yeah, we guarantee you, if you do what we tell you, we will fix it.
Yeah, you can fix it, right?
We will fix it.
But once you fix it, that's where life becomes juicy in many ways. And not that sex is everything, but to be able to spontaneously get an erection, I think is very important. So
100%.
PT-141, Viagra, all these things, sildenafil, tadalafil, all these things, if you're using them to pre-plan sex, you're still missing the point. We have to fix the root cause. You should be able to get a spontaneous erection. And if you're not, you got to look at it because that's directly tied to your cardiovascular system.
We got all the tools to do it.
Right? And we have the tools for it. That's
amazing. Amazing. Guys, as we wrap up here, there is something else that you guys offer that is very forward thinking. And I want you guys to touch up a bit on what this is to let people know about this other modality that you have.
I'll let Carlos do that for a second and I'll chime in, but I just want to, we're not going to get into this because we don't have time, but we never got into the longevity aspect. This, what we're about to speak, is the holy grail of longevity, right? In every way, but hold on, in every sense. But we're talking about this could be a treatment anywhere from $38,000. If you have disease, it could cost up to $100,000, right? And believe me, we're under the margin when it comes to that. We're the most affordable out of the few practices that are doing this, that are providing this at a fairly reasonable price for what it is right now. But if you can't, longevity peptides, which is what we want to focus eventually, we were talking about taking, individual peptides, PPC, this. So a beginner will take 1 peptide, intermediate will take 2 peptides, an advanced person will take 5, 10 plus peptides, right? So when we're talking about longevity, you have things like FOXO4, Epithalon, Thymosin Alpha-1 combined with it, LO37, SS31. You can literally take 10 different peptides at once, and the synergistic effect is going to feed into that longevity aspect that you're looking for. Now, the holy grail is what Carlos about to speak about.
And I'll just wrap up
makes it more affordable is what I'm saying.
Yeah, number one. Number two, I'll wrap up the show and the whole talk that we did about peptides for people. First of all, let's just kind of recap that, right? Number one, you need to be hormonally balanced. Number two, and even prior to being hormonally balanced, you need to be nutrient balanced.
The foundation.
If you don't
Exercise,
get the foundation
fasting,
right,
sleeping,
right? Like we always like to say, peptides are like mango seeds, right? If I give you a mango and you plant it in downtown Miami, or give you a mango seed and you plant it in downtown Amazon, Which one's going to grow better fruit?
Which one is you going to want to eat?
Of course, the one in the Amazon, because of the conditions, the soil. So our job as ethical practitioners is I need to be able to create the Amazon inside of your body, inside of your biochemistry, so that when I plant the seeds of peptides, I'm going to give you a return on investment, which is my job, right? I'm not going to let you, just fall off of a cliff and spend money down the drain. So just to kind of recap, yes, you need to plan the foundation. You need to do the work. We need to get you, the foundation down first. Second thing is you can do peptides depending on the condition, but you can cyclically use them, like Miguel said, kind of like a muscle to wake up those parts in the body that are declining with age. So you don't necessarily have to have a condition to do peptides. Like, for example, we cycle BPC 2 to 3 times a year, not necessarily because I have an injury, just because of this regenerating effect that it has. So, and that goes across most peptides. And, Miguel didn't get into a lot of the longevity peptides, but there's a ton of longevity peptides that are really, really, really great. Now, the coup de grace, or, the holy grail that we have right now in terms of technology is really, really cool and really exciting, because it answers a couple of questions that we've been asking ourselves for many, many years. And this is kind of like the thing about the space, right? Like, we are in the longevity space. Well, how do you even define the longevity? How do you even really measure that? Right? Especially when you have to contrast it against a later state in life, right? A future event in life or a future circumstance in life that we have no really control over or certainty over, right? So how do you really calibrate that? And how do you really define longevity? And so then the question that becomes, well, let me ask you, you're 38, right? So imagine we speed up the tape till you're 58, okay? And I say to you, hey, Sam, what would you give me if I could tell you that I can give you a protocol that will literally give you the health, the vitality, and the cellular resiliency that you had when you were 38? What would you give me? Most people would say everything or a lot, right? And the cool thing about it is that we now literally have that technology available to us now. So this is a partnership that we formed with this amazing company called Neo7, Dr. John Catanzaro, who's the founder of the company. Just so you understand sort of the brain of this man, he was a a jet engineer for Boeing. He was designing, jet fighting engines for jet
fighter jets.
Yeah, fighter jets. And he was the engineer. He would do the interfaces for the engines, and then he became an integrative oncologist.
Wow.
Okay. And then he
25 years.
Yeah, he developed this technology where he was only treating the affluent, because he was treating people that were already told by traditional medicine, hey, prepare for end of life. So this guy was not only reversing stage 4 cancers with this technology, but this is the part that really blew my mind. He was making non-verbal autistic children speak in 2 to 4 months.
Wow.
Which you can imagine not only the change of life for the child, but the change of life for the parents.
Of course.
Right? And so just like anything, right? Like, do I need to have ED to use, Cialis for longevity, or for me to benefit from Cialis? The answer is obviously no. Do I need to be obese to benefit from GLPs? The answer is no. Do I need to be, depressed and suicidal to benefit from psychedelic therapy or ketamine therapy? The answer is no. So he took that, right? And by the way, he had retired because he couldn't take the emotional, like, imagine seeing people decimated by disease and children and all this stuff. And he retired, and his wife, who's amazing, and we're on a cruise. It was like, listen, you're on a cruise getting fat, when you have the cure for cancer, you need to get your ass back to work. So he comes back to work and he develops this program for longevity, right? And so now basically, and I'll let Miguel kind of chime in because we go back and forth, we kind of see it differently, he basically, they map out 22,000 genes, right? So basically we take a snapshot of your exome, which is sort of like the functional part of your genome, what regulates your neurological system, your digestive system. So he basically focuses right now on the 8 hallmarks of aging, 8 out of the 16 of hallmarks of aging, right? And so he targets that, and we map out 22,000 genes, and he makes a specific peptide, not a BPC that you and I can take, but the SAM peptide that only you can take based on these genetic factors that you have to recode your cells for resiliency. So what do I mean by that? So when you take a testosterone, or you take a supplement, or you take a peptide, that's a protein influencing a protein, right? So this guy goes like 4 layers deeper, where he's now recoding DNA, which then transcribes RNA, which then regulates expression, which then influences the proteins, right? So I can take all of the damage that you've accrued until right now, 38, from, toxicity and your lifestyle and, obviously environmental factors, and I can recode your cells to clean all that up and code new for resiliency. So we're now going at the DNA structure level and leveraging your body's natural pathways to not only calibrate for longevity and performance, but also to cure disease.
Wow.
This is where we're at. And this is the technology that's available to us right now. So remember when we were talking about how am I in my 40s and I'm performing at this level, and it's, and I started going back, and it's like, it's all of this, right? Like, it's not only the nutrition and, planting the seeds and the peptides, but it's also, we did this program. And, when we looked at our before and afters, I mean, just myself, I went up, what it was, 127% on Clothos, on my production of Clothos, which was one of the most important proteins in the body, right? And so now I'm able to get my cells and keep them in this state and make them resilient into the future. So when you're talking about remaining this healthy, this, performance driven, and this capable of doing what I do, now I can code to literally slow down that pace.
Wow.
It's incredible.
So, because
Did I cover enough?
Yeah, but that was, I think, a little complicated for the viewer.
For the
And again,
average
this is a constant development in how to speak this in a tongue that's easier to understand, right? So we have 3.2 billion nucleotide letters, ATGC. Those are the 4 letters that make up our entire genome. And they're just coded differently, right? For you, they're coded specific different. So literally, when there's a gene break or a faulty gene, it's like spelling bake versus lake.
Yeah.
It's going to say something very different, right? So the point of what they do is that the exome is the protein coding aspect of our genetics. So there's parts of our genes that are of our genome that is not coding for anything. Yeah. This is the coding part. So whatever it's coding for is sending a function that it's coding for, right?
Right.
So the exposome is the amount of damage we incur through oxidative stress, environmental toxins, viruses, infections, sleep deprivation, stressful situations. It's the sum total of the effect of life that downregulates our genes. So some become underexpressed, overexpressed because they're trying to compensate for others. Remember, your body's always trying to find balance. That's not even mentioning the dysfunctional genes we inherit pre-genetically from our family that are already dysfunctional.
Right.
So the body's already in a disadvantage, but with life, it becomes even worse. So I like to always correct it as we get one set of tires, and what happens every year, you go and you get these tires aligned, because if not, you start eating them out of balance. And then once your tire is gone, you got to change it. The problem here, we only get one set of tires. So how can you keep these tires fully calibrated so you can go as long as you can, whether that's 80 or 80 years of age? Yeah. I don't care to live to 180 years of age if I'm going to be in a cane sick and falling apart. If I'm going to get to 180 feeling like this, fine. Take me when you want. The point is, how long can you go? And the only way you're going to do that is that you got to keep those tires fully calibrated. Yeah. So what this technology does, it helps to recorrect that imbalance of those tires so they're fully aligned into the future. And what it goes through, it's called the omics. Ryan Smith speaks about this. It talks about your genomics, which is your genes, which is the brain, the blueprint. Then that codes for transcriptions, which that's where the messaging transcription factor, where the instruction gets written, but with time, that instruction can become faulty.
Garbled.
The bake or lake type of analogy I gave you. That transcriptomic leads to proteomics, which is the production of proteins. Then metabolomics, which is the production of metabolites. Then epigenomics, which is the environmental effect on our body. And that keeps going on and on and on, right? So we can literally identify now which genes are being overexpressed or underexpressed just like the tires, recalibrate them so oxidative stress is at bay. So mitochondrial function is at its optimal. So oncogenic potential, which is your vulnerability to getting any disease, it's low. Autophagy, which is one of the hallmarks of aging, which is how our body cleans up cellular debris and recycles waste, for that to be optimal, right? And then the most important that he emphasizes a lot is called immunophenotyping, which is how our immune system's response and compatibility and adaptability to stressors, how are we responding and bouncing back to them. If we can get the immunophenotype, the immune system resilience of our system to be compatible to our environment so we're bulletproof, now you can really slow the aging process and code into perpetuity. For
yeah, but I'm sorry. Like, you know, granted that you're doing the right things. Like, you're not going to be doing this and then smoking cigarettes and coding, you know, eating donuts, because then you're going to code for the wrong thing. But like he was saying, it's like you're taking genes that are off, turning them on. You're taking genes that are on that should be off, turning them off, and then potentiate the ones that are lagging. So now you calibrate those tires.
And then the goal of that, just so I can finish my point, it's basically done here. The goal is because remember how he said, I take BPC, possibly I don't get a response. He gets a response. What's going on there? Yeah. So we have emergency drugs mapped out. Pharmacogenomics is how your genetic makeup is going to react to a drug that it can either kill you or save your life, right? Some drugs that might be good for you might be bad for me.
Right.
Through genetics, pharmacology, we have certain genes already mapped out for emergency drugs, but we don't have them for optimization drugs like hormones or peptides. So here is basically not only once you correct the signaling aspect of the system, you get rid of all these faulty genes and you get a clear signal. Yeah. Now, when you take BPC, growth hormone, secretagogue, any other peptide, it's going to be augmented because the cellular efficiency at a molecular level is clear. Yeah. So that peptide is going to take direct effect on what it needs to do, not including traditional drugs. You would respond better to anything because the system is clean. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the communication is very clear.
And
There's no garbling.
And then we're not going to get into it, but now he just rolled out a new product which for vaccines or post-vaccine injury damage. So the vaccine codes for the spike protein, which can replicate into perpetuity and doesn't have an off switch, which can code for proliferation of cancer. It can grow into proliferation of these blood clots that we've never seen. It can grow into producing compounds that are toxic, and that's why people are having mood disorders, depression, insomnia, etc. All that. We can actually map out the damage done, kind of like if you dropped up a bomb. We can actually see the exact effect and the trickling effect, the signaling effect is had down through your genes and recode it to erase it out of your genetic code so you can go back to living your life without any.
Well, even more precise, like he could actually locate the lot number of the vaccine that you took, know exactly what was in there, and then put a kill switch to the spike protein proliferation and then repair the damage.
Wow, that's precision medicine.
This is precision
that's
medicine
precision
to its finest.
To its finest, man.
So
and that's
guys,
it.
To wrap up here, I'm going to ask you guys to describe this biohacker with one word. Only one word, all right?
Which one?
Oh, there's going to be several. So one word. This will be quick.
Okay.
Dave Asprey. Go.
Sellout?
Dave Asprey.
Outdated?
But, you know.
No, one word.
Okay, fine. Damn.
Gary Brecka.
Authentic.
He took about authentic. I'll give him that.
Joe Dispenza.
Deep.
Pioneer.
Peter Artia.
Pisses me off.
Numb nuts.
Yeah. Okay. Last one, Brian Johnson.
Oh my God. Freak.
Weirdo.
All right. That's a wrap. Guys, as we close up here, if there's anyone listening or, listening or watching the podcast and really resonates with today's message, what is one thing that you guys can leave them with?
For me, I would say, going back to the ultimate biohack, know thyself. And, if you really want to be the best version of yourself, that's actually available to us now.
Yeah.
And you just need, look, Michael Jordan dependent on a coach. LeBron James dependent on a coach. Even if, whether you're someone at the bottom or even someone, that's like really efficient and just looking for that next edge, I mean, get a coach, get someone who is the real deal and who lives and eats and breathes this lifestyle. The proof is in the pudding. That's part of like a lot of these biohackers that you mentioned. Like when you go to these biohacking conferences, these longevity conferences, 98% of the people that are there, I don't want to look like them.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Look like crap.
And I say this cautiously because I don't want to sound arrogant, but it's like we really live this out every single day, and we will never make a recommendation on something that we haven't personally vetted for a long time, and then our friends, and then our family, and then our patient base.
Right.
So you need to find someone. It's kind of like you don't go to the gym and hire a physical trainer that is fatter than you. Like look for someone who's living the life and like has the results and has a track record of results that you want, and make sure that they're ethical and that they're not just selling you stuff. That's what I would say.
What was the question again?
What you can leave if someone resonates with today's message? What can
I
you leave
would
them
say that if you're sitting in victimhood, which a lot of us do, you have no excuse today with me. Because today, I just think of our parents back in the days. They had to go to a library, find a book that's outdated. They had to get in a car. It was really hard to learn stuff back in the days. Today, you have this device that works better than the NASA computer in the 80s.
Yeah.
And now you have AI, which you can train it to literally give you information based on literature that's validated with peer-reviewed studies.
Mm-hmm.
And you can literally show up to a doctor's office, record that, and go back home and basically get more information than your doctor ever gave you.
Yeah.
We're just tools. We've already done the homework. Now, we still use AI to help us remind and put things together. But today with AI, you can literally do anything you want. I don't care how sick you are. I don't care how dysfunctional you are. If you take and you get out of the victimhood mindset and you take control and you start doing the research and you get hungry, just a little hunger, and you start looking and digging and researching and finding people who embody this art of medicine the way we do, you will solve any problem. I believe that, look, I'll close out with this. Our medical system has a tradition, pill for a nail approach. And we have over 30,000 classified diseases. And there's a profound philosophical understanding that all of you need to understand. Everything starts because of a dysfunctional cell. If you fix the components of the cell, or you learn how to nourish that cell, you will eradicate disease.
Yeah.
You will eradicate any condition. And if drinking is a way for you to connect or have an outlet, I'm here to tell you that you're going in the wrong direction.
And you can find a better place.
There's
and you know what?
place.
And also look for someone else. I'll finish with this. That's great. Find someone that's has spent the money. Like when I mean we put our money where our mouth is, like we spend the money.
Right.
We have, not only do we take money and reinvest it back into our company in terms of like servicing our patients, like technology that make your process easier, faster, better, more cost effective. But we spent $200,000 in research testing products on the market so that you don't have to.
Yeah. Right.
Because that's another thing. Like you could go, oh, which magnesium should I buy? 1,000 brands. Which one is trustworthy?
Yeah.
Which one's clean?
We're only giving you what we take.
Yeah, we're doing that because we're living it. I'm doing it, and I'm feeding my mom, my dad, my
kids, family, cousins,
my
everybody.
my wife's entire family, my nephews. Like I feed them this stuff, so I need to make sure that it works for me. And so find someone who's congruent.
Yeah,
I love that, guys. Where can people find you?
medicalhealthinstitute.com or mhilife.com. Our Instagram is Medical Health Institute.
Yeah.
I don't even know
and
what
if
else.
you're calling, if you're watching this, if you made it to all this way, congratulations. I applaud you. I might give you a bunch of gifts, but just make sure that you tell us that you came from Healthy POV. and we'll hook you up, man.
Yeah, no, you'll get a 10% discount if you mention Healthy POV to any of our wellness coaches, which these are professional wellness coaches that have been fully vetted and curated. You will get a 10% discount on behalf of Sam.
Yes.
And
we'll take good care of you. We'll make sure that we'll put you on a VIP list.
There we go. Guys, amazing. It was a pleasure to have you guys on the podcast.
Hey, man. Thank you so much. God bless you, man. We really appreciate it.
Guys, as you guys heard how Carlos said, every great athlete has a coach. So you got to make sure you have your coach who's guiding you through this process. It's extremely important for you to take care of your health. Your health is one of those currencies that you just won't trade for anything. You're not going to trade it on the stock market. You got to take care of it, because without your health, you're not going to do any of the stuff that you're doing today. So make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Make sure you follow these guys at MHI, right? I almost said MIH, but it's MHI. And guys, do all that fun stuff. Share it, follow, tap, click, subscribe, and we'll see you for the next one.